Good evening, everyone. And Selectmen meeting July 12th, all Selectmen are present. We've been filmed by Area 58 for viewing later. The first thing on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, if you could.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We can use more later. I would like to take this one moment with permission of my fellow select people just to say my regrets at the loss of lives down in Dallas, as well as Minnesota, Baton Rouge, and anyplace else in the country that's lost lives needlessly. So I would take time to just say my prayers go out to all those. Thank you. Okay, we get about 7:05. We have an appointment with Mr. Clausen. And we're going to be discussing this consent agreement. That's where we left off the last time.
Yes. So,
Okay, I have a copy of what you like to see, the number and the line items, the ones you want to discuss. We have numbered ones here.
Well, actually, the copy I provided, I just made some changes to it for discussion, to help going through it, because I realized it would be, as I was making notes too, it was easier if I put some of them in points in here and we can talk about it. The numbers are actually, the copy that was provided to me had all the numbers removed.
Okay.
So the numbers I put back in to number the sections, because I think, I don't know, I presume that might have been just an omission in the, because I don't know why they would have been taken out for any reason. So,
Kim, Tom, do you have anything, any particular questions, anything you want?
Well, I think what we should probably do is just go over the difference between what Attorney Mayo provided us that I looked at earlier today and then the one that was just provided this evening.
yeah, and actually, so, I mean, maybe we could go through all the differences with Attorney
Yes.
Mayo's, because it wasn't redlined, and it didn't come with any annotations. So I went through it and some differences I noticed, and there were some things that's where I made kind of suggested to talk about changes. But then in case there was any I missed, like there's one in the beginning, I didn't highlight it. I think it was innocuous. I don't know why it was removed. But if it's the town's preference to keep it out, that goes to the size of the farm. Because the original agreement noted the size of the farm,
Okay.
that's why I put the size in it in
Yes.
this one, so that if someone's looking at the two of them, it's very obvious.
Which
ones?
Yeah, it's very obvious that the farm grew in like 3 times the size. It wouldn't be something people would have to ask and, you know, what was the change there? It's right, one of the changes is right there.
So why don't we look at, because I see one change, I think it's crossed out, whereas Clausen and town agrees that the conduct of horse shows is subject to reasonable regulations. Did you cross that out, or is that?
Well, actually, I did cross that out, because what happened there was, the copy that came back from town actually changed, it changed that, because what it used to, and when I posted in, it's the 2 underlined sections. Kind of wish I had a color print to stand out better, but I added the 2 underlined, which are taken right from the original consent decree. And I think that goes to what the issue was back 23 years ago, which is kind of the issue is why we're dealing with the consent decree. Whereas the town had one position, Scott had another position, but without regard to what the town's positions are, this is what we're going to do. And the copy I got back from Attorney Mayo changed Scott's position, because it says when it came back from Attorney Mayo's is Clausen and the town agree that the conduct of the horse shows is subject to reasonable regulation, and that was a difference of opinion from back 23 years ago. And that was just a carryover from the original. So I don't know if there was a reason for the change the town proposed.
Well, whereas the town brought a civil action against Clausen in Superior Court in '93, it stated, whereas Clausen believed the conduct of horse shows is not subject to such regulations. And that was why we brought it civil in
Right,
the first place.
My recollection was the civil lawsuit was not with regard to the horse shows. The civil lawsuit was to enforce a building inspector's order. And then as part of settling that issue, the agreement included, I guess, maybe the next point of contention that the town and Mr. Clausen felt that would be coming up, said, while we're here, okay, we resolved the building inspector issue. While we're here, let's put together an agreement so this doesn't become the next issue. And maybe Scott can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, he's correct.
Yeah, that was just about a temporary stalls or
It was
non-temporary.
a building permit issue.
Doesn't mention that here.
That's what
In the original agreement.
That's what the lawsuit was about.
It's kind of difficult to discuss something that you have in front of you.
So you basically just added that back in? No, I'm good.
Yep.
I just had, you also deleted, whereas Clausen and the town agreed that the conduct of horse shows is subject to reasonable regulation in the interest of public health, safety, and environmental. Why would you can't cross that out?
You don't believe that? Is that what you're saying?
No, I crossed that out. That entire language was what was put in there by town council.
Yeah, why don't
And-
you like that?
And I put back in the other two, the two original paragraphs.
Okay. And do you have an issue with that being in? Oh, no, because it already includes it. Okay, I see that.
So it was a carryover from the original.
Yep.
So basically, you don't want to concede that Mr. Clausen believes with the town?
No, he,
No, I see that.
okay.
I see you put the original in, but I mean, you're still making it contentious there, aren't you? Or what am I missing?
Mine's been crossed out.
Yeah, that's the crossed out language right there.
Okay. Oh, I see.
Well, this whole thing started with that difference of opinion with the town, and, we're here, I guess the question is, what regulations specifically are we talking about? I think some of I think that really comes out, because some of the regulations, I think that the town might have some say in it, are mentioned in here, but I think a lot of this is also the land use regulations.
That may not be.
And they may more be state regulations, right? And I think that might be part of where the difference is are there local oversight or is there state oversight? And the Board of Health, I think, is a entirely different situation when it comes to local oversight.
Right.
Because I think it's mentioned strictly in here that you comply with the Board of Health.
Well, waiting for the original copy. Is there anything else that you disagree with you?
Well, we have to go through the pages.
Second page, 1, 2, 3. Anything else? I don't see anything crossed out, that's why I missed
No,
it.
there's
Right.
additions though. Look, be careful actually to the left-hand margin, there's a vertical line.
Yes.
That indicates that there's some change made in there. So, on Mayo's copy, this paragraph 1, I guess, has some other issues to talk about. But one I put in there is just that the party shall use reasonable efforts to attain the court's approval. My anticipation of doing this is a joint motion that I'd be preparing with Attorney Mayo, that we both agree on the language. And I presume I'd be pretty much the one arguing for it, and the town's Attorney Mayo is either going to be there, or he's going to maybe just send written word that you know, that the town's okay with this. That's what I expect, but just, you know, to cover it, put it in there. One issue, you know, one issue is we talked about some things being changed for this immediate point of time. Those were removed in here, and that kind of goes towards the effective date. And then there's another area in the beginning, later on, about an August show with the RVs and the number of dates this year. So I didn't specifically put that back in, but that's something I think we need to talk about, whether or not we do get the board's blessing to go forward this year, and then we have, this clearly controls next year. And our anticipation is pretty much what we do for this year. You know, we'd all be on the same page about what's pretty much the extra shows. But I don't know why it was taken out. And that comes down to a lot of this. I don't know why things were taken out, so it really is hard to.
If we agreed to let him have shows this year, by the time this agreement is okay by court, will the season be over with? Because that's
Yeah.
a reasonable thought. So why would you be concerned about this year's agreement if in fact the court may not have an opportunity to say that our agreement is valid?
Well, because I think the town has the authority to say Scott can do 2 more shows. I think 2 more days, you need? 2 more days. The other issue is the RVs. I think the town has the authority to say, that's okay.
But then that shouldn't even appear in this.
Well,
But we had
I
been
think-
talking about
Yeah.
it. We had been talking about
Yeah,
it. So
and-
that's part of the whole conversation over the last few weeks.
and at the last meeting, I think there might have been a thought that we might have a final agreement tonight, and then having it in here would have covered it. And then, you know, be running to the court with summer judges. You know, I know a session up by me, I've already told there's no judge for the summer. So I'm hoping Plymouth will be different in that regard. So that was, you know, but we can either put it right in here, or, you know, maybe the board could take a vote and just approve those one-time changes until we get this in.
I wouldn't have a problem with that.
God bless you.
Now, there was, the entire paragraph about the corporation was removed. I know we talked about that before. You know, that's an issue. I guess if the town's not comfortable with that, I think it's something Scott would live with it for now and we'd come back. Or, I mean, I had in their proposal in my mind about how to deal with that.
I think we spoke to that issue the last time. I think I was the one that said something to the point that if in fact he is not organized as of yet, then he needs to do that, and that's what needs to be on the paperwork.
Well, I think he, using another section that, you know, as an example for me, what Attorney Mayo put in about the third-party manager, in a way you can almost look at this, Scott has the property, he does he acts through the corporation. Scott's still liable and responsible and has to make sure all this is complied with. His corporation does, kind of acts through it all for liability and for other purposes. And then there are, I think, 2 shows this year that there's another organization that's involved. So, you know, I think it is okay with Scott. I don't think Scott has to substitute him for the corporation to proceed, but what he was looking at is when he wants to step away, his goal is to pass this down to have his children take over the corporation, is to make sure it continues.
Well, I don't see how that affects what goes on here. Because if he wants to form a corporation, then we need to make an agreement between the corporation and the town of Halifax. If he should decide to walk away from the corporation, if they are members of it, then that whatever's in place at the time carries through.
And I think that's what
That's what we had in the
yeah, we were making the corporation part of this.
Could I just ask Charlie, could you just
You know,
explain?
Larry thought
Yes.
that it's either one or the other, in the sense of
Yes.
either we're dealing with Scott right now, or we're doing the
Dealing with the
corporation.
corporation.
Right.
Not both at the same time, or one after another, in the sense of, I think, as Troy mentioned, I think Larry's thought is, if we need to switch the agreement to the corporation, we can do that at a later time.
Okay, so you guys just want one or the other.
Yeah, because, I mean, if corporation, if Scott does something wrong, the corporation's back on the supporter and when he's doing wrong, then it's got to be one and the same individual.
Well, the corporation, my draft had the president and treasurer both personally on the hook. So that way the town would have personal individuals and not a corporation that might hide behind something that they had personal people. But you know, I mean, with the town's position, I don't think Scott's is concerned about that, and that could be something later when the time comes, he could, you know, we'd be before you asking to substitute the parties, and then we would deal with probably the same thing. The president and the treasurer of the corporation is gonna be either the same person or two people, and they'll be personally liable, for the conduct of the corporation to the town as it comes to this agreement.
Are you looking at the corporation to be strictly the operating arm of the shows, or is the land going to be included into the corporation?
It's the operating arm of the shows.
Okay, but not the property itself. It's
Right,
not
not-
what you're thinking.
That's in a different trust.
Yeah. The property is more or less individually owned, I mean, through.
I understand, I'm just trying to make sure how that's going to work later, but we can deal with it.
Yeah, because if it's all of a sudden the trust that tells the corporation they can't use the property anymore, then what happens to the corporation?
Okay, so
That's
let's
between
just
the
go-
trust and the corporation. The corporation has no place to hold the horse shows.
Right,
So let's just go with Scott
That's
Yeah.
right.
for now,
yeah.
and then, yeah,
Perfectly fine.
okay.
So, let's see. Now, what's numbered now is paragraph 5. I highlighted that because that was something new. And I didn't know where it was coming from. So that,
Charlie, do you have Larry's comments on that particular paragraph?
I don't think so. Look at this.
now, well, see, if you don't have comments.
Yeah. I think what it was simply is that we know we may be dealing with more than one party here. Ultimately, Scott is responsible, but if we don't want a miscommunication with that third party, in the sense that that third party needs to realize, for instance, the consent agreement exists, that what we are allowing, not allowing, things like that, so that they're up to speed. We don't want someone claiming, for instance, that Scott didn't tell them what was what. We want to be able to say to Adam Smith, Adam Jones, whoever, that here's, for instance, a copy of consent agreement, you're expected to abide by these same terms. In the sense of ultimately that Scott is responsible, but I don't want anybody saying, well, I didn't know.
Well, that's a problem for Scott if someone comes back and says they didn't know if they're doing something. I did talk to Attorney Mayo briefly about a couple of these, and that was one of the things he mentioned to me was, you know, more or less, I thought it was more under the impression of who's the contact person that's responsible for the show. And I think the answer is it's always Scott. Scott's responsible for compliance with this agreement. The way it's written, it implies that the town may be calling up, and you know, there's two shows that right now they're kind of
At this point, the third party that we're talking about doesn't exist, at least in our talking to it.
well, no,
They
the
do
third.
exist,
No, the
because,
third party, I think in the town's mind would be, there's two shows. One is the gentleman that came for the alcohol,
yes,
Yeah.
Silver Oak, and another one is called North New Hampshire Jumpers.
New Hampshire Hot Jumpers.
So they hold shows, and they hold them at Fieldstone Farm. And they have to comply with the agreement, that's all clear. And Scott makes his arrangements with them and enters into his agreements with them. Scott does that with all this in mind. And he sets forth what they can and cannot do. So he has their, you know, like a venue agreement with them, and he has oversight as well. So the buck stops with him. Now, I think one of the issues, he did speak to the Board of Health about something they were asking about for the New Hampshire show, and he gave them another contact. So if there's somebody else involved that, you know, if something was happening and needed to be reached out, he doesn't mind providing an alternate contact if you can't reach him. But he's the one responsible. If there's a problem, he'd expect he's the one to call up. If there's something going wrong at that Silver Oak show, you know, he'd expect to be the first one to be called and said, you know, Scott, there's something going on, this is not right, because he's got to nip it in the bud.
Well, except that we've had problems before where Scott, in essence, didn't know what was going on to begin with, like with the alcohol license.
The alcohol should have, there were professionals involved that should have known better. And, you know, I think that's an issue that was done. And Scott's looking at some of those little things, especially when you hire a professional to do a job, and that professional does something they weren't supposed to do. and he's on top of fixing that.
But
And I
what's
know-
the difference between that and this? Because these are professionals running a show. It's the
Well-
same sort of a thing.
Well, I think Scott's also has the same, it's the same oversight. Scott's entering into an agreement with them, but, you know, one of the concerns might be so now is the town gonna be calling up the people ahead of time and being like, oh, by the way, we wanna make sure you know this? And we're concerned about his negotiation with his people, what's
Okay.
going on. You know, what's being said, you know, do these people get a sense of, oh, this is, you know, what's this judgment, consent decree? That changes a whole new explanation to provide to these people. It starts out, this is how many days you can have, this is how many vendors you can have, everything has to go to the Board of Health, or for the food. You can only have this many vendors, they need to be permits, I need copies of A, B, and C by this time. You know, and he's making sure that everything's in place, so any of these little things that see that might fall through the strainer, you know, get caught. He's tightening up that net.
So, does it make sense to maybe edit this to say that, you know, that we have the ability to contact the third-party manager if we can't get in touch with Mr. Clausen? Like if there's an issue that isn't being addressed? I mean, can we edit that paragraph so that we both?
I think what we would propose is provide an alternate contact for each event. So Scott's going to be the primary contact. Now, those other events where there's another organization that's tangentially involved, the head of that might be the alternative contact. For Scott's events that I talked about, maybe his show secretary or even his son, somebody else. So if there's something going on and the town has to reach out and get information and they're not hearing from Scott, that they have someone to call. Or someone if,
You know, maybe when I send the child in the dates, list myself as contact and an alternate contact also if I can't be reached. You know, if it's, you know, for say for the Silver Oak show, you know, I list Jeff Pophouse.
I have one problem, well, it's not a problem, but it's a question. Who actually runs the show? Are you just providing the property and somebody else manages and runs the show? Do you set up the events and things going to change? Because to
We
me,
set it up.
that's what I mean by running the show.
All the shows I set up in cooperation with them. I do a lot of the pre-work and setting up the horse shows. The actual operation when the day the horse show starts, they manage the rings, the organizing of the rings and the crew and people entering.
the competition.
The competition itself. But as far as the whole operation of the grounds and stuff, I'm still in control of that.
So I think if I can say it right,
I actually have a little trouble with the language in the sense that I think it almost defers responsibility to the third-party person, where we really want to hold Mr. Clausen
Right.
responsible.
and we don't want to defer anything to a third party either. We
No,
want-
I understand. I mean, any mistakes that the third-party person could do or have happen should be Mr. Clausen's responsibility no matter what. I don't have a problem per se with your argument. Again, I'm concerned that it almost suggests that we're laying this off onto somebody else.
Which we
don't want to
And
do.
we've repeatedly said exactly what
Right.
his attorney, the buck stops with him. no matter what, so.
Yeah, that's,
So this almost suggests something different.
So would the board want to have language in there that would be agreeable to you to say, for each show, we have a set and
Yeah.
yes.
An
alternate party?
alternative.
But the other thing is this, I don't know whether it's so prudent that for the third party, for the, call them third party shows, that not that we give them a copy of the consent agreement, but Scott does, so that they're aware of it.
I don't think that's really necessary, because Scott's obligation is to comply with this. And how he wants to make them comply with it, I think really needs to be left to him. Because his agreements with these people is it's gonna follow this. And the real concern is explaining to somebody, you know, that this exists, or rather just telling them, this is all you get, this is what you get. And if you don't like it, you know, maybe then you can tell them, well, that's the agreement with the town, but not to complicate it with, oh, there's a court judgment, and we don't know what, sometimes people won't even ask the question, they'll be like, I don't want to do it. He's involved in litigation, or,
Do you give, when they come in to do the shows, do you give them the instructions in writing as to what they can and can't do while they're on your property? That's in writing.
Would you say lighting?
right.
Writing.
Like,
Oh,
a lease contract,
yes, yeah.
Okay.
And that spells out what they can't do.
So we could just change the language, say that the lease contract should include the language of the restrictions and what's allowed.
Correct.
I don't even know we need that far. Scott, he has to do it, he has to make sure they can comply.
I mean, you gotta give them some parameters. I mean.
As far as the food vendors and
Yeah.
vendors and campers and all that stuff, it should be in there. Correct.
That sort of spells out the basic things they need to do at
Yes.
least. And ultimately, you're responsible anyway.
Yeah, and now the agreement with those people might just cut and paste. I don't know what how it's currently worded, but probably when I get my hands on it, it's probably gonna cut and paste, some of these specific things to say this is what you're gonna do. So that way, it might even be a little more restrictive for them. There'd probably be some other requirements for them to give us the chance to make sure that there's compliance.
Well, I think if we're dealing with anybody, it should be Mr. Clausen, and not necessarily messing it up with third-party people. I think that opens up more avenues for finger pointing than we need to do.
So we're looking for
Yeah.
alternate contact, and that, any lessor or licensee of the property must,
So you want to eliminate this whole paragraph, is what you're saying to me?
I think
Comply
I'm
with all
changing it to
regulations.
make sure there's an alternate contact, and that any lessor or licensee of the property,
Adheres to all the conditions.
will have to come, he'll have to make reasonable efforts to make sure they comply with the terms of the agreement, which is, he's gonna have a lease. He's gonna have some agreement with them to make sure they do.
And ultimately, the responsibility lies with Mr. Clausen.
That buck stops with him, and it's his livelihood, so.
I think it should be added into number 4 above, because that's when I send Charlie the dates, number of horse shows and so on. It should just be included in that.
Yeah, or probably one thing I was gonna say is maybe a time frame before the show, and that would be provided, might be provided at that time, or maybe another deadline. I don't know, some of the people it might be pretty obvious when they might be thinking of the show secretary issue. If you know who that's gonna be at the time, or if that's someone that changes. I know it's typically the same.
It should be fine. January 15th will be fine.
Board room to agree
That's
with that
fine.
stipulation? Kim?
I'm fine with that. Thank you.
All
So
right,
I'll
next.
put something, so I believe,
So I think we're going to number 10.
actually, there was a spot in there before that.
Well, number 8.
Number 10, did you say number 10?
I did.
Number 8.
I'm sorry?
We need to go 8 first.
8.
Yeah, there's some.
Okay, number 8, yeah.
That doesn't belong there.
The Board of Selectmen and the Zoning Board of Appeal, I think we discussed this. I thought we were on the same page, but Mayo came back with the Zoning Board of Appeals.
I
I
think
spoke to him about that.
I think it should be the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, exactly. I think should be stricken.
Well, that's what I had.
Yeah.
And I did-
Charlie, and that's our board's decision.
Yep.
Okay. Troy, you-
Yeah, fully agree. I mean, that's why we're talking about this now.
Right, exactly.
okay.
Number 10.
Number 10.
I highlighted it just to point, so we draw our
Thank you.
attention to it, but I think that can be removed now because of the prior reference.
No, actually,
The third-party manager?
sure, yes.
Yeah, because that was to verify the
Yes.
entries. which-
Yes, but this is the additional one that we can come and audit, which is what I wanted in, so,
Yeah, you guys got down there, how many entries out of there?
yep,
And then him and the show secretary will go print it out.
okay.
All right. Tom?
Is there a show secretary
Good.
for all the shows? Okay.
So what's next, number 12?
Number 12, my only thing there was I put a paragraph line back in just to, I didn't change the text. This was the text. This should be the same text. I didn't notice any changes with this when it came over to you guys. And under the second paragraph, there's an indent. It was up higher one line, and I just
Okay.
broke it down so it just flowed better.
Okay,
Try to keep some of that stuff, little readability.
No problem with 13?
And I think 13 is pretty much typo correction right in the bottom of the page. It said with each horse show, but I put with the horse show, because the whole paragraph, I think it's talking about
specific.
each one does a specific show.
14?
14, I believe think the language was pretty much the same, except at the end.
7 days of receipt.
Yeah, it was added, the evacuation plan to be provided within 7 days of the request, and they put 7 days of his receipt of the request, just because 7 days is a short time, and they didn't want to make sure a letter date got stuck on someone's desk or something like that. I presume you guys,
It's reasonable.
I think that's something he's working with the fire and police anyway, and probably won't even get to that point after, it'll be done early. 15, I think, is pretty much it should be the same. It's about the porta potties. 16, I think, is pretty much a carryover, and it has the increased vendors. And then now,
What about the all licenses and permits
That's-
required for each vendor to conduct operation business within the town of Halifax?
yeah, that is where there is some changes to discuss. Before, it ended pretty much after the license, the statute references.
Right.
And then there was some added language made to it, which wasn't sure the reasoning behind it. Also, some of the things in here, I think seem to kind of be duplicative of different things going on. So,
As I read it, all it's saying is that Mr. Clausen's going to be responsible for the vendors, anybody else coming onto the property.
I don't read it as, I think I read it as a lot more responsibility than that. Now, it says, Clausen is required to obtain from each vendor copies of all license, which, that overall, I don't think would be a problem. And I recommend to him to, get copies of everyone, to get a copy of the permit so he has them for his file. Then we got being responsible for ensuring all vendors conducting business are appropriate licensed. That is where I think the language itself starts to become a problem, because he's got to make sure they have once they come with their permits, I'm not sure what else he's going to be doing, because they have to be permitted, so they come there, but I'm not sure what other steps other, keeping a copy of them for that sentence.
Well, when you're negotiating with an individual, they got to show you something that in fact they're licensed to do the business they're doing. That's all we're asking, is that you have a copy of their license and in fact that they are licensed and that just seems prudent to me.
Well, that paragraph's not really, that line about getting copies of them. So when he hires the vendors and maybe you tell me the board, I think permits need to be posted. I don't know if the board, the food permits, I don't know if they have to post them. Do they?
That's out of my realm.
Yeah, so those permits have to be posted. And I'm not sure what permits for the non-food vendors.
Clothing, things of that
Right.
nature.
Yeah.
Actually, see, that's the thing. I don't know if they need a common victual license.
Yeah. No.
For food,
But what
Food's
about?
different, but we're talking about
Clothing and tack and such.
tack and stuff,
Don't need a
they need a
The
permit.
picture is the food. That's
Okay.
what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, food's not the issue, because they all have to go before the Board of Health, and they have to post their permits.
I'm
Again,
not aware of any permits that if I'm selling clothing or tack or something like that, souvenirs, they need to have a sales tax
Right.
No, yeah.
permit from the state and such, so that they
Right.
can collect the sales tax. But
I think the
we
only
don't
time
go around checking for that.
only time we do that if they're on the town property or something, there's something in there to be a permit from the town or
Right,
whatever.
I think
Does that fall
it's
under
fine.
peddlers?
Yeah.
Does that fall under peddlers?
Yeah.
We don't tend to worry about it.
No, I understand. I mean,
I don't know.
it's sort of a broad umbrella kind of thing.
well, and that's where I think it becomes a little bit of duplicate. There's already a requirement for the Board of Health food permits. But then, him ensuring that anyone on the property is licensed. I think if someone's there not licensed, that's a problem for him in the agreement. So that's why I thought it was superfluous language. It goes without saying. He's allowed to have these permits, and he can't condone. And there is another line, by the way, when we get to it. He can't. I added the word knowingly. I typed it wrong, but there is a line that he shall not knowingly allow any vendor to conduct business on the premises without any appropriate license.
Okay,
Yeah, see,
now-
I don't really love that statement knowingly, because again, we keep talking about the fact that the buck stops with Mr. Clausen in the sense of if there's people that aren't following the rules, you know, that it's his ultimate responsibility. And so I know that it says it in other spots, but I don't understand why it should be an issue to just reiterate that.
Well, I guess, I mean, comes
I
down
mean,
to if
he's
someone
already
does-
said, you know, he would take care of it in the sense of,
Well, I guess because of the ramifications, if there's a violation.
well,
there's
it
no-
would be a violation.
But, you know, if someone does something behind his back, he can only do so much.
No, let's go back to the alcohol thing.
Yeah, right.
That is his responsibility, and he admitted that on many times we verbally spanked the same issue.
Yeah, it's-
I don't want to go through it again, but I just want to just be clear that at the end of the day, it's Mr. Clausen's responsibility. And regardless if he knew about it or did not, it's his responsibility.
And I guess the issue would be is.
And it would
if
be
he-
a violation.
If he knew they were selling it, if they knew they were giving alcohol, it'd be a violation, but if someone's selling alcohol without it.
No, it was a violation.
All right, so I think Scott's.
I thought we've made so much progress.
Well, the bottom line is that if you're negotiating with someone, then you need to, at least in my mind, if I was doing it, I'd ask two questions. Are you the person with the license that's going to be administering this business, or are you going to put this down to somebody else that may not have license? So what I'm saying to you is that I can come to you and say, I want to go sell things on the property, but then I book it out to somebody else. That person may not have a license, but he just may be available for that day. Those are the type of things that we need to be clear, that if you're going to be there, if I were you, I'd ask him, can I see a copy of your license? That's all we're saying to you, is that you need to know.
And that's another paragraph, he's gotta get copies of them.
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess then we come down to.
But if somebody's there without a license, I mean, he's still responsible.
Exactly.
And I
Kick him
think
off.
that's the issue here.
Well, he can do what he
He-
wants.
Well, that's the
He's in charge,
Right, he's in charge.
and if he
That's-
sees somebody that doesn't, he knows he's got 6 people selling A, and he sees 7, he knows somebody's in violation.
And someone is off the property.
Right, I understand, so I don't know that
Right.
we need to give him this out of knowingly, is what I'm getting
That's,
at.
that's fine.
Just like if there's happens to be an extra camper, for instance, from what's required, that's his
An extra what?
responsibility. Camper, that's
Oh,
his
okay.
responsibility.
Yeah.
Regardless if he went to bed and the camper came in, it's his responsibility.
Right, and that's where the security will be told.
No, I understand that, but I'm using that as an example because I know Mr. Clausen, you have sat here many times and said it's my
So
responsibility.
then I go back to these, there seems to be 2 sentences that say too close to the same thing.
Okay,
And that's what, Clausen shall be responsible for ensuring that all vendors conducting business on the premises are appropriate licensed by state and town authorities, and shall not allow any vendor to conduct business on the premises without such appropriate licensing.
I think that's perfect.
That's good.
So then,
But then to give him a knowingly out later, it doesn't work for me.
All right, so I guess the issue is then him being the co-signer now for these applications.
Okay,
That doesn't seem,
that's fine.
Right, no, we wouldn't expect that.
No, that's
No,
fine.
that's okay.
it was your proposal.
We'll give you that.
Oh, sure, put one more thing on. We all set with seven?
Okay,
six?
is
No,
it,
there was another section in here that also seemed a little duplicative. Well, you should provide notification set forth above, I'm not sure if it gets to it. Obtain and keep copies of the necessary license. No, I guess it's not really a problem. The only thing is, I think the town's already gonna have a lot of these licenses, because I think the main ones are the Board of Health.
Yeah, I think the idea is, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, is to have them on site, so if somebody questioned it on site.
And I'm telling
He'd be
you,
able to
copy them for your
provide
files, so there's no
Yeah.
problems later.
Right.
They have to be posted.
Right.
I looked at it as being duplicative, but
Well,
Yeah.
I think
And
what
it
we're
protects
trying to
him.
do is to make sure there's no oops in the process. I didn't know.
Well, it
If it's
protects
in
me.
writing, it's there.
right.
the right
protects
to
him, too.
access is a carryover.
Yeah.
In 17, that's about the campers.
Overnighters.
Yeah, and I guess the issue really there was just for this year. There was the one show in August that you guys were, I think favorably, I think majority favorably looked upon allowing extra campers for one of the shows in August. And then after that, it's going to be based upon electrical hookups.
Yes.
So that's, I guess that's the only issue, is that can be dealt with outside of the agreement for this year. And if that's the way, then that should be fine. think the big next one is the enforcement process, which,
21?
yes, so the issue, so I made a couple changes to what town council proposed. One of them is they put a time period for the town to act. And that there, we can talk about that, but the idea is we don't want something happening and then the town sitting on it and then deciding later, we're gonna go bring that up. We wanna try to make a timing, so if something happens,
From the time
You're
that
looking
we
for a timely
notify them.
notification that there's a problem and you give him time
you
to
guys
deal
learn
with
that
it.
there's a problem, I guess you'd have a choice to make. You either call them in, not through this process to talk about it, or you call them in through this process to go
Well,
through
I
here.
tell you, if I'm still here, it'll be immediate.
I can presume which way, I can make a presumption as to how that decision might come, but that is the board's decision. So I think there just needs to be a time frame. So when you guys learn of something, you act.
Oh, we do,
That's fine.
yeah.
But there wasn't anything before, so in theory, a year
So
later,
what
you guys.
you looking at, within 48 hours of a...
No, I had 10 days, I had 10 days.
Last week, we gotta do a little bit of investigating, because
That's the, I just picked a day.
The
So.
other thing is if you wait 10 days and the thing is activated because you didn't tell him the next
No,
day.
it's just, we don't have to wait the
Up to
10 days, because sometimes if we have a hearing, maybe perhaps we're in between meetings, and we couldn't get quorum, that gives us that flexibility.
Is this, that the horse show is ongoing for weeks on end.
Right,
There's a horse show this weekend. 10 days later is a week and a half after. I mean,
Right.
So let's say the horse show is on, what, 15th, 16th?
yeah,
And so, everybody's gone.
right.
So it's not-
These aren't like the building inspector, like continuing violations.
No, we get it, it's just our board itself.
And I mean, I picked 10 days, but I mean, maybe 14 days, I know that might.
No, let's do 10.
10, okay.
that's fine.
Let's not stretch it.
Yeah. Then the return receipt requested part of certified mail was taken out, and many people may not realize that certified mail does not provide proof of delivery. Certified is just proof that you mailed it. It's the return receipt requested part that gets proof of delivery.
Well, it doesn't prove delivery if the person doesn't pick it up. We're dealing with a similar situation. All that, what the post office will do is provide us with information showing that they tried to deliver.
Attempted to deliver.
Well, right, and then after so many attempts, it gets sent back. But that's why I put the return receipt requested. So if you send him with a green card, the green card will be proof of when he received it. Or if he's not picking up his mail,
Send the police down with cards.
by other means to ensure delivery. Whether, you call him on the phone and tell him to come pick it up, just something, I don't think Scott's gonna
Should
be
we call
avoiding.
Pony Express
Or the
to
sheriff.
make sure they get to you?
Or the constable.
Borrow a horse, I'm sure you probably want to say, but no, I don't think Scott's gonna be the issue of ignoring the green cards, and I know when I usually send things out with a green card, it's green card in first class, so you at least know it got there, but
I would hope that what we're going through now would instill in Mr. Claus and anybody else that might want to run it, that we're very serious about the operation, how things are going down there. And believe me, you will be aware if there's a problem. I'm hoping there never will be a problem. I'm hoping this is the last time we have to have a discussion about any violations.
I hope so too, but I would expect, my guess would be, is he'd get a certified letter, return receipt requested sent to him, and probably a telephone call or an email from Mr. Seeley telling him, hey, by the way, letter went out and you're on the agenda for this day. That'd be my guess as to how it might happen.
Probably. I don't think you're
Anything
far.
further on that?
Nope.
Okay, what's next?
I put with the notice of violation, said the town shall make available to Clausen all documents and statement, and I put in there that they should be included with the violation. I think we're talking about a short time frame, and probably be best just have the town, this is the violation, and here's the support of it.
Right.
That way he has it right there. Otherwise, it's a practical matter. He comes down and then,
Huh? What?
Yeah,
he's like, give me everything. And,
right.
the bigger issue on this, which I did speak to Attorney Mayo about, I don't think there's any real agreement as of yet. It's sort of something we have to discuss is, he changed it down to reasonable discretion of the board. And I had before clear and convincing evidence as the basis. And I can go through the reason why I had that before, and that's, the reason being is, it's a clear standard that's well understood. So it's defined by the courts, and we can get advice on how to follow it. The agreement now is in a judgment. The current status, it's in a judgment, and any violations will be dealt with through the court through contempt. That's the established process to deal with the violations. The town had a concern about, there's no local enforcement, and the other method's really expensive for everybody. No issues with that, that's agreed. So we bring it down to a local enforcement process, but I don't think that means that the standard of review changes. I think the same standard that would apply if we went to court to address violations really needs to be, we can bring that down to the local level. Then we run into the problem of the language was removed, and I put it back in about if Scott has a problem with the agreement, say if he contends that the town is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and this enforcement process might be the most likely, if it ever got to that, which I think we're all hoping it doesn't. If it ever got to that point, this would be where his issue would be, is the town's not enforcing it properly. He would have a very high standard. He'd have to show by clear and convincing evidence that the town abused their discretion. Abuse of discretion is a very low standard anyway. And he'd have to, and now he's got a high, so it's very inequitable. And then the other problem is, I don't believe that we can contract by agreement or even with the court's approval, a lower standard on, like if it went back to the court. And there was actually a case where people tried to do that with an arbitration review, and the court said, no, you can't rewrite the law. You know, the law says this, and that's what you have to follow. So that's what we're focused on here is, the law is a specific standard that applies now. It's going to be a judgment in the court. We bring it back to the local, but it should be that same standard because that's the standard Scott would have to follow if he contends that the town's not doing something right. You know, that's something maybe I can talk to Attorney Mayo more about that. I don't know what the board's thoughts are.
Charlie, did he have
No, I don't
any
have
notes
anything
on that?
specific about that, but I think the attorney should be talking with you
Right.
about this.
Yeah, because the only thing that I have on here is that it doesn't allow us any recourse, but it says that if Mr. Clausen experiences the problem with the consent agreement, that he can declare it, be declared null and void without further.
That's the later paragraph.
That's the last line, yeah.
That's from the original. And that basically, that says, that there is, if the town tries to do anything, if the town tries to regulate the horse shows outside of this agreement,
Right.
Scott can toss the agreement. So the town, it's really the town's decision. The town could say, horse shows are no longer allowed. So then Scott has the option. He can go to court and say, they're violating the agreement by not letting me do horse shows. Or Scott can say, the agreement does not exist anymore and everyone is left wherever they're left based upon the law that applies. And then we basically go back to, I guess, the dispute 23 years ago then gets fleshed out in current time. So that is strictly, if the town does anything to enforce what this agreement covers outside of this agreement, then that's where that comes into play.
So if we came out and said you can only use Clydesdales in any of the jumping events,
That's it. Scott can then elect to toss the agreement. I think if you came out and said, you know, if we agree to 30 show days and all of a sudden he was only approved for 28 one year, then that would be a violation. That'd be the town who's going against the agreement. Now, like the vendors issue, now he's allowed to have so many vendors, but if the vendors don't qualify for permits through the Board of Health, that's not a violation of the agreement.
Right.
It's, you know, it's more or less the horseshoe. So I'll make sure we're clear. It's not like he can't go to someone at the Board of Health and say, you have to approve these 5 vendors
Right,
because I'm
we
allowed
don't
to
have to, right.
Make sure that, yeah, I think we're all on the same page there.
Yeah.
And that was straight from the original.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that really is the paragraph that we discussed right before this about the,
Standard.
yeah, about the standard and about, you know, obviously I was championing that whole fine system, you
The
know.
fine, I didn't really make a big deal of it. We spoke before about the $300 mark. And it's one of those things I kind of have to stick to it, but I don't think it's the breaking point. But my concern with what he did here was, there's statutes and all over the place, and everything talks about the maximum fine, the town monetary fine is $300. I know this is by agreement, and I was a little more concerned about the fact that, you know, it's basically showing, it's doing something monetarily here that there's no ability to do elsewhere. I don't think Scott's not equivalent about that, but
Right.
my concern is more the optics. I'd like to change it down to 300 because the other parts are really, I think, more important to the board.
I'd like not to.
She's the money person. Okay, anything further? 'Cause
No,
that
I
ends
think
in-
we're almost there.
So,
I think you're right.
Is it 2020 yet?
there was one other minor thing in here, which I don't, no, it's just, there's a reference to the number of horses in 2016. I mean, I presume I could leave it in or I could take it out, because if we're making this agreement effective next year, it's really superfluous, it doesn't matter.
Well, how many shows do we still have this year?
Well, that's the other part we have to talk about, because the way Attorney Mayo wrote it, this agreement is not going to
Not
be
valid for
effective
this year.
Right.
in order to fix that issue.
We're doing a side bar agreement.
So that's where, I guess what we'd be looking for, maybe tonight, is if the board would permit Scott to have 2 extra show days this year, and on the week of
August.
And these are all the ones that we've discussed over the last 7 meetings.
Right, nothing new.
There's nothing.
No, this is nothing. And then his August shows, which is August
The 17th to the 28th.
17th to the 28th, those 2 back-to-back shows. 15 RVs. That was 15 RVs that was what was in my proposal from after we
But
discussed.
they're not gonna run generators.
Correct.
Yeah, they're not running generators.
I'm not seeing anything that says what the actual effective date is. I think he's thinking it's January 1st, I haven't found.
No, it's the effective date under Attorney Mayo
No.
is.
January 1st,
No, it's the-
2017.
No, the effective date is the date the court approves.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the court's gonna have to approve it.
It'll be the latter of the date that we sign it, or that the court approves it. It's the date the court approves it, because that has to happen
Right.
last. See, what will happen is
And we cannot predetermine what date that might be, or when you're gonna even hear it.
if I could predict what the court would do, what will end up happening is once this is signed by you guys,
But at least it's not contentious. I mean, we're not
no,
going in there.
what will
That
happen?
happened over the last 7 meetings.
Yeah, right.
What the process will be is I'll be putting together a joint motion to have the court to approve this, with kind of some, probably some niceties in it to really tell the court, please do this, we've all negotiated,
Yeah.
we met, and this is what everyone wants. Attorney Mayo will sign off on it, and then I will probably file it in person with the court, because I think they might need some hand-holding because of the age of the case.
Yeah.
And a little explanation of what we're trying to do. They'll get it before a judge, who's either going to
Just sign
call
it.
us, who's either gonna sign off on it.
Or go, "What the
Or
hell
he's
is
gonna
this?"
call us in before him and say, what do you want me to do? And that all depends on who we get.
And you don't tell them to muck the stalls, right?
I'm sorry?
You don't tell them to muck the stalls.
Okay.
Okay, I think that covers everything that we
Now
need
we
to
have to
cover.
approve the extra days.
Yeah.
Any other questions of him?
No, that I think,
Well, just that I don't know what exactly you're agreeing to for the year we're in now.
okay.
We're gonna-
Well, let's just verify, the only issue that Attorney Mayo needs to get with Mr. Clausen's attorney is the clause about I think it was, what page?
The level of the,
Yeah.
The standard of review.
The standard of
violation.
review, right.
I
So
believe so. I'm gonna
Right.
obviously send everything to Larry, but
Right, but that verbally this evening seems to be the
Right.
only thing that's,
Yeah, and maybe explanation to him if there's things that Attorney Mayo was suggesting that the board has a decision about based upon this, maybe let him know about that. Because the Board of Appeals, the zoning Board of
right,
Appeals, that's.
right, but that was, yeah, but we were in agreement, so, yes.
And then I'm gonna be putting some language about the lease, and I can talk to Attorney Mayo about that language as well. So between him and I, we might have satisfactory language for that. That way, the next proposal, apologies for that. So that way, we can have something that, maybe if you tell him what you're looking for, So he'll know, and I can just hash that out with him at the same time. So
Okay.
we're not talking about the language afterwards.
Okay. No, I think that's good.
I don't see there's any problems with that.
Okay,
That's fine.
okay.
Thank you for your call.
No, we still.
I know we still have to vote on the extra days,
Yeah.
but still, thank you for going through this fine, through with this issue.
We did it in less than 3 hours too, which is good.
I know. So before we make a motion for that, so we're assuming that this could be agreed upon with Larry, and we would sign it at our next selectmen's meeting. Okay?
Yes,
Okay. So do we want to make that appointment now before we forget, so that?
sure.
The next selectmen's meeting?
Yeah.
Can we, I gave you the green one. Give these folks a time.
Are you guys ready to make a decision tonight? You want to hold off on this?
I'm ready to make a decision on the,
Tom?
On the extra nights you're talking about now?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd put that in the form of a motion.
Hey, when it's lined up,
Yeah.
we can make this.
oh yeah, that's kind of
We're
like,
talking
this should be
about-
quick.
August 17th to the 28th, so there's 2 shows,
Down to Charlie, so she said
6 days.
Did you get it, Charlie?
I didn't really know that.
Anything else?
I second it.
What was the motion?
Yeah.
There's 2 extra days, right?
All in
Yes.
2
favor?
extra days and the
And the RVs.
RVs.
Without generators.
Without generators.
12, right?
Yeah, what did we talk about last time? I lost track of it.
No, this is different between...
15, just in case.
Right.
So 15 generators, 2 extra.
No, no generators.
15 RVs. Without generators.
Right, 15 RVs without
15
generators.
RVs, 2 extra days.
Yes, no generators.
In August. And he motioned that.
Yes, Tom motioned,
Tom
I
motion
second.
it, you
Yeah.
second it, any
Yeah.
further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And we're going to be coming back to this at 8:30 on July 26th.
July 26th.
Not a problem. 8:30 on July 26th? Yeah.
We should be able to wrap it up.
I hope so. The only thing I will mention, and I'll probably talk with the attorney, is I have strong commitments during the day of the 25th and 6th, so I'm hoping I can get everything wrapped up with him by the
I'll
22nd.
try and get everything to him tomorrow.
Yeah, so I mean, my night times are free, but my days are complicated.
When you actually work for a living?
Sometimes I gotta go to the courthouse. So if we have an agreement, maybe I'll bring this in the next day. 7:20, you said 8 or 8:30?
8:30. Thank you for your time.
We'll be back in a little bit for the next part.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that 8:45?
Yeah, but we have a...
I know you have your
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I think we have about 7 or 8 minutes to do other business.
All right, do you want me to do...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, would you like me to do my spiel?
You know, I've always liked listening to you talk.
Okay.
So go right ahead.
We have a lot.
Yeah, it's one of those.
There's a lot of
Okay.
money being spent here.
I know, we do. I move to affirm approval for the following warrants and commitments. Payroll warrant number 117 for $231,239.57. Fiscal 2016 vendor warrant number 118 for $146,149.78. Fiscal 2016 withholding warrant number 119 for $68,594.51. Fiscal 2016 payroll warrant number 120 for $89,358.35. Fiscal 2016 vendor warrant number 121 for $171,154.73. Fiscal year 2017 vendor warrant number 1 for $1,276,506.73. Fiscal 2017 vendor warrant number 2 for $10,196.49. Ambulance commitment number 6C for $1,653. Ambulance commitment number 6C for $67,091.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
I move to affirm approval payment of the following selectmen bills. Payable to National Grid for $42.80, payable to Wastewater Services for $360, and payable to National Grid for $1,216.57.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. I move to approve the following warrants and commitments. Fiscal year 2016 school warrant, number 122 for $439,935.70. Fiscal 2016 vendor warrant, number 123 for $386,799.53. Fiscal year 2017 payroll warrant, number 2 for $131,605.54. Vendor warrant number 3 for 2017 for $1,279,890.43. Fiscal 2017 withholding warrant number 4 for $77,087.22. And mobile home park fee number 7 for $5,160.
Is that a move?
No, yeah.
Set.
All in favor?
Aye. I move to approve the payment of the following second bills dated July 12, 2017. Out of the insurance account to CNA, direct bill for $600, MMMA for membership dues for $91.27, Maya Workers' Comp Group for our invoice of $76,310.76, Maya Property and Casualty Insurance for $119,578.69. Chubb and Sons, a division of Federal Insurance Company for $26,500. Solitude Lake Management for $24,255. That's for the treatment of the pond. Petty Cash for $50. MMMA, another annual due for $983, and EJ USA Inc. for $315.32. I have to abstain from the Maya since I serve on the board of directors of Maya.
So you want me to move it?
Yeah, so you'll have to move the Maya.
I will
ones.
move the
Yeah.
bills as stated.
Yeah.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
And I abstain from Maya, but I approve all the others. Okay, I'm all done.
No, you're not.
I'm not? Oh, I hate the turnovers. I'll acknowledge the following turnovers. Turnover number 2016-54 for $5. Turnover number 2016-55 for $25,000 and 2017-1 for $50. And now I'm done.
Thank you.
Minutes?
Was everybody able to read the Selectmen's meeting minutes of May 24th?
Yes.
I will move those as printed.
Second.
Hey, we had a 7:45 meeting with earth removal permit from Morris Brothers.
Aye.
And we're all set?
So I guess the question is, so where did the board want to start with tonight? I guess, I don't know if you have more information at this point you want to provide the board, or?
I don't, I'm Bill Madden from GF, and Morris Brothers, and just really here to answer any other concerns you might have. Was anything specific, as I recall, from the last meeting? Would you like me to put the board up?
Yes, please.
Would be helpful.
Yeah.
My back is killing me because it's so low.
Yeah, I can't get this one up here.
Oh, no worries. Yeah. Yep, right there. Thank you. Charlie?
Thank you, folks.
Thank
Have a good night.
you. You too.
So I guess, Mr. Chairman, I guess if the first questions, if the board had questions about the permit or the process or anything, and then the board could open it up to the, as part of the public hearing to members of the audience.
My major concern Of course, it's the number of trucks going up and down the road and the condition of the road and what condition it might be when this project is through. That's my main concern. The other, and we discussed it somewhat, was whether or not there would be any damage to those homes along Lincoln Street as far as their foundations or their property with the trucks going through. So, did you have the opportunity to revisit Lincoln Street, over the street again, to look at it?
I did take another ride down it, and it didn't go on any properties or what have you. I still, I think my position remained the same on it. I didn't think that it was in deplorable condition. I think that what our plan would be to video the entire roadway prior to the start of the work so that we could establish a benchmark of the condition prior to the start of the work. In a similar fashion, we could do that with all the abutting properties on each side of the roadway as well. We could either do that recording from the properties with the permission of the landowner or from the street line. And I think that would perhaps be the best way to establish some level of baseline of condition prior to the start of the work.
The other question I have is, if should we give this permission for this earth removal, would it carry over into the school year?
That's a good question. We thought about that. If it were to carry on into the school year, we would be willing to accept a condition that would restrict the trucking element of the work to the hours consistent with the bus stop pickup and things of that nature. So, for example, if the bus pickup was between, I'm just citing an example, not knowing the hours, if it was between 7:30 and 9 o'clock in the morning, that no truck trips along Linden Street would be permitted during that period. Similarly, in the afternoon, if the drop-off period is between 2:30 and 3 o'clock, or 3:30, we would restrict be acceptable to a condition that would restrict our operations outside of those hours as well. So recognizing that the permit conditions allow 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., we also recognize that you have the authority to establish working hours. So we think that by cutting the workday from 10 hours, which is allowed, to something less, which would be more or less 6 hours during school time, during the school periods, that would serve as mitigation for the bus routes, the traffic, and the children. So that's what we had for a suggestion on that. Another way to perhaps look at it is the way your conditions are written is that you shall not issue a permit for more than 1 year. So does that mean that we could conceivably establish a permit timeline that's less than a year, restricting the removal to a specific, series of months, whether it's the summer months or the winter months, whatever? I think there's some latitude in your authority, though obviously there's a lot of latitude in your authority on establishing conditions, but that would be a suggestion that may or may not be something you're willing to consider.
One last question, to my board members. All the trucks coming out will be adequately covered so that there's not a dust issue? Would it be wetted down so it doesn't fly in that nature?
They would be covered. That's required by state law. We don't think that it would be necessary to moisten the loads with the proper cover on the trucks.
Okay.
I'm glad to hear that you were willing to adjust the hours so that the children were in school, because that was a concern of mine, like that there'd be children, playing in the neighborhood, and those are pretty large vehicles. My other question for you is, I'm told that some of the neighbors on Hemlock Lane were visited by people being told that perhaps the route had changed from Lincoln Street to Hemlock Lane. Do you know anything about that?
I think we touched on that briefly at the first meeting, and We have had no discussions
Okay.
at all with any other truck route other than the one that's proposed with this application.
I was told that these people were notified after the meeting that we had, so I just wanted to verify again with you that Lincoln Street remains the only way that you believe that you can bring the dirt out of that
Yes.
area.
Unless they put barges on the lake.
Tom? I was just curious, have you established what the entire route is yet? Do you know where the gravel is going? I mean, once it leaves Lincoln Street, is it going north, south?
We have not, it's really going to be a demand-driven issue at that point, once we hit, 58.
And we've determined, are you still talking about 25-yard loads?
That's what we calculated the truck trips on, is 25-yard loads. However, if there's a requirement that we use a smaller truck, like a tri-axle, then there would be 20-yard loads. However, there would be more trips associated, about roughly 20% more trips.
How would the applicant feel about posting a bond for any potential damage to the road?
I think that bonding, the posting of a bond is a requirement of the permit, and it's up to your judgment on that. I think that it's common practice in other communities.
I think establishing a baseline is where I'm having a little problem with it. Videotaping it aids in that. I don't know that perhaps another review of the condition of the road, not that I'm impugning your integrity, but in terms of an independent observer, I don't know if that's something Highway could provide or...
Well, they need to look at it because Lincoln Street, happen to travel it every day. There are areas where the road is cracked and that patch has been done on it. There's other areas that are so narrow, 2 cars can't even get by. So we're talking about going down to that particular area. And in one area, it goes up a hill, so, and then down, the road has been cracked there a little bit too. So, how many tons do they weigh? 25 yards or how many tons?
Oh, God, I don't know. Whatever the road limit is on a tractor trailer, I want to say 100,000, but I'm not 100% certain on the weight limit. They are all weight limits on the trucks, and actually the load would be a little bit less than 25
Is that on
yards.
state roads or is that side roads included in that?
If they are on a state road, then I think that the side roads, the only roadways that I've been made aware that there's any restriction, and that's on private property, off-road, not on a traveled way. Like within the confines of the Cranberry Bog themselves, there would be no weight limit there. But I think that whatever the over-the-road loading requirement of the truck is can't be exceeded.
My concern is that Lincoln Street was never built. I mean, it was just oil pen, and over the years, there's been a patch here and there. The end of the street near 58 may have gotten a driveway kind of overcoat, but that's about it. The rest of the road, oil pen, we got them all over town. I was actually thinking about it this afternoon, and I was thinking to myself, has anyone even contacted the water department to see what kind of condition those pipes are?
Well, we've notified everybody about...
No, we haven't gotten anything back.
Nothing back, no.
Not for the highway either?
Not really, no, aside from their concern with the road itself, we don't have anything specific. I brought up to Bob a couple of times, and basically, they are concerned about the before and after, but they weren't specifically, as in, we want this level of bond, or we'll go out there and do a road inspection, and we'll come back to the board with comments, or anything.
So they have not said that that's what they're going to do?
No, they're not going to, they haven't said they're going to do any of that.
Could we ask them to do that?
Yes.
Yes, so I would definitely formally ask them to do that, because how else would we know whether or not it's...
Make a decision in the arc, especially when it comes to the
possibly.
roads.
And even in terms of requiring a bond, I
Right.
mean, we need some guidance in terms of what it would take to...
And Charlie, could you specifically ask the water department about the pipes? I think that's a valid concern.
On the water pipes, typically they're buried at least 4.5 feet in the ground, and the load distribution on the truck, although the weight sounds as though it's pretty significant. It's distributed over like 16 wheels on the vehicle, so
My
it's,
concern is the amount of trips in constant outing, as opposed to, you know,
The other thing is that we ran into a situation on Route 36 10 years ago when we were doing the road reconstruction. And the folks who were doing the engineering never realized how close the pipes were in fact to the top of the road.
and that's one of the older sections in
Right,
town.
and so the concern is going to be that, do we have accurate information as to where the lines are versus the elevation of the road? So I think what Kim's pointing out is, let's make sure that the water department has done its due diligence, not on your fault, but on theirs, in essence, to say, we're telling you, you need to go out there and check. Give us a confirmation you've gone out to check, either you have problems or you don't have problems. But we need you to literally sign off on this.
I mean, because we'd hate to just guess at what it would cost to repair the road, if any damage can get done. We want to be fair to you as well as to the people in the neighborhood.
I think the bonding requirement could also include the roadway service and the underground utilities of water services as well. It's, does cost a few dollars to bring it in, to renew a service from the main within the middle of the roadway or the shoulder of the roadway. But that could be also another mechanism by which you could gain a little bit more protection for the town. My own belief is that I don't expect that to be a problem, but it's not my belief that we're really concerned. It's your belief in your community, and it's your goal to protect, and I understand that.
Charlie, you had something you want to say?
No, I guess
Because I want to open it up to
the
the
other
audience.
thing, what I think we're trying to do is, bonds are great, but it's sort of like, it's a much more mild version of, okay, you had a vehicular homicide. Well, you'd rather not have a vehicular homicide in the first place. Maybe someone's paying damages, but big deal. The person's still dead. We'd rather not have the water pipe burst and have that set up so it doesn't, rather than rely on the bond. As much as the bond will repair the damage, there's going to be a major inconvenience
Right.
for one more resident.
Understood. Do you have any idea? I guess we probably don't even know the age of the main or when those services were installed.
I'm gonna guess old.
They got to be someplace in the 40s.
Yeah, I don't know if it was 70s or
Oh,
because some-
probably 40.
No, it wasn't the 70s. I would say 40s.
34 years and it's always been the same.
Yeah, I've been there longer than that. You're old enough to think. Yeah, I'm just thinking about my house and the line it runs in. Yeah, it's got to be back in the 40s because many of those homes were moved in there. They were taken from the military base and moved in as cottages. So that's when they ran in. I don't know if they really ran.
They were probably
Pipe might have
temporary
won.
ones at the
Temporary
time.
ones,
They were just seasonal to begin with.
What
most
I'll
of them.
do is I will talk to Keith tomorrow.
Thank you.
That would be great.
And how do we establish the value of a bond? I think that's one of the problems I'm having.
Well, that's what I'm saying now is that hopefully the
Gas.
highway department can do it.
Yeah, I would do gas,
Yeah.
and I would definitely do those in writing.
Okay. Does the board have more questions? I was going to open it up to the audience. If there's some of this.
Good for now.
Please, if you do have a question, if you would give your name and where you live and rise to the occasion.
My name is Richard Holmes, and Thurston Ave. Last time we were talking about fry-ups, and that's tractor trailers.
No, I think, I'm sorry.
What's that?
Yeah.
I didn't mean to jump in, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm being rude here. We started talking about tri-axles, and I remember asking the question, if we're talking 25 yards, we'd be talking overloaded on a tri-axle.
Right.
And that's when then I believe that the comment was made, then, if we had to do that, we'd have to go to trailers. I believe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but something along that line. Then we conceded it would probably be trailers if we're talking 25
I think that's
yards.
what we were talking. I mean, that's typically the way we see the earth movement being conducted is through dump trailers.
Well, so it's dump trailers or tractors we work with?
There's no distinction of what we're
Because
doing.
I know you keep exceeding the number of what the truck actually holds.
Well,
I mean,
just let me be clear on the, I'm just doing that,
Just a moment,
that for simplification of the mathematics. I'm using consistently 25 yards for dump trailers for my calculations to develop the number for truck trips, and I'm using 20 yards on a tri-axle to determine the number of truck trips. With full understanding that the loading is dictated by the loading distinction of the tear weight of the vehicle plus the over-road load that's allowed by law. So, you know, the yardage, you know, it depends on the moisture content of the material that you're putting in there. It adds a few pounds to it, but we're not trying to understate the number of truck trips we have here or the loads. I think that, you know, typically that's what we use for discussion purposes such as this.
Did that answer your question?
Kind of slow. I mean, it's the, I'm in the business with the trucks and all that. Every time you say a tri-axle hole in this amount, that hole, that amount, you just exceed a few yards, which adds a few hundred on the tail end of the loads. Like, all right, we're going to say 10 loads at 25 yards. Well, they only hold, say, 22 yards. All right, well, it's actually 16 loads. But now when you're talking like hundreds of loads here, you're in the thousands. It's just, you're playing with it feels like the numbers are getting played with on that aspect. On top of one, like,
Let me say to the audience in general, one of the keys to a good discussion is to allow the person to respond to something that has to continue on and to lose a little bit. It's like, that's all right, just allow him an opportunity to answer your question, and if then you answer another way.
It's a lot of trucks, and like you're saying, the water mains, the gas mains. It doesn't want the water main to make every catastrophic.
Troy, can I answer? Sure. So let's assume that we're not going to get 25 per year, per trip.
Sure.
What's the assumption? How many yards are we going to have?
We have 41,600 yards of material to be removed from the site.
So if we say 20 yards, we're talking 2,000 trips.
Yes.
Okay. If we're saying 21 is a little bit less, is there any number that we can use when we're talking with you, we're talking with residents to say, we know it's never going to be exactly 25 every time. It won't exceed 25, and many times it's going to be less. So, are we saying 20, 21, 22, so that if I'm communicating with them, I can say it's actually going to be this estimate of number of yards rather than 1,600, which would be based on 25.
Like I say, I always use 20. I always use 25 for the simplicity of math. We want to use 22, which is really probably the closer number. And being in the business, you really know what goes on 90% of the time in the trucking business. Depends whether you're buying material or selling material, what you get in that truck. The safest way to do it is put it over a scale. Everything's loaded up. It's all by weight, and that is the best way to do it. You ensure that there's no overloaded vehicles going out of the site, and use 22 for it, and I can recalculate the numbers.
Are you aware whether or not the Morris Brothers have scales down there on their property that would be able to
They
do
do
that?
not.
Just to clarify a little bit, if we're talking over 20 yards, we're talking trailers, correct?
We're talking, yes, over 20.
Okay, I just want to clarify that for everybody. If we're talking under 20, it's possibly a tri-axle.
Correct.
And then when we're talking trips, and just for everybody's clarity, remember, it's a round trip. I mean, it's not loaded on the way back, but it's still another trip.
Because I thought originally we talked about 1,600.
It's 3,300.
Well, that's what, that's based on
3,300 trips, if you count round trip and everything.
And if you take those yards off, now it's 4,000.
And also, just as a sidebar, if there were some sand uncovered on that site that Morse Brothers chose to leave on the site, it would result in less trucks going across the road. If there's sand in that hill, they will retain, 5, 6, 7,000 yards on the
To
property.
use for the
There's a
bolts.
lot of sand in there.
Right. Do you think there's a lot of sand?
Get down there.
Do you think there's a lot of sand?
There's a lot of sand. I mean, when I was allowed to go on the property, I used to take my horse down and ride through that area that they're talking about moving. There's a great deal of sand. In fact, they use a portion of it, already to put sand in the box
Correct.
when they're going to change it, so. We not to wish them any bad luck. We hope there's more sand than anything if they should get the permission.
There you go. Yeah,
So
exactly.
leave it there. Any other questions from the audience?
I don't, oh, no, go ahead, that's fine. My name's Annie McCain, I live on 13, Richview Avenue, but I back up to the dirt part of Lincoln, so I hear the trucks going in and out all the time. And they-
Lincoln's got dirt road?
I'm sorry?
Lincoln's got a dirt area there? Come on.
Yeah. The question, you were talking about the covers, and I know that the shape that Lincoln Ave is now, there's bumps there. If you ride over a bump with a truck full of dirt, there's always going to be something flying out, even if it's covered. That cover doesn't, come down over the side, it just kind of sits on the top. Is there going to be any kind of cleanup at the end of the day, or is it just going to pile up?
The conditions of the permit require any spillage should be cleaned up by the permit holder. And I think the condition would be, it could be daily, it could be weekly, but they are responsible for the cleanup of spillage on the
So at
road.
the end of the day, they would do a sweep and
Well,
clean up.
we have to make that
we have to, if we get it written into the agreement, yes, that could be an item. If we get it written into the agreement, that could be a factor in that.
Okay, that's what I'm asking, is that get written in, that there's got to be some concessions for the neighborhood, because it is a regular residential. The other thing is, I have an idea, and it's okay if I propose the idea, is that the people in the neighborhood are going to be inconvenienced. That's, we know that, everybody knows that, I understand that. I don't think we need to stop you from doing it, but I think there needs to be a concession to say, yeah, I guess it's going to be all right, we'll put up with some inconvenience if we have a plus side on the other end. And you talked about videotaping Lincoln and restoring it to back the way it was before you started this project. Why can't we make it better? Why can't you just say, okay, at the end, we're going to repave it, it's going to be beautiful? Because that's one of the problems of that neighborhood anyway. Everybody hates Lincoln because it's in such bad shape.
That's a strong word.
Live in my house. Yeah, you hear the trucks bumping across there.
But honestly, it's from Boston, it's like,
Believe me, this board will get whatever permit is given. We will protect the neighborhood and protect the town. That's our job.
Well, why can't we make it better than it is now?
Well,
Because of the inconvenience.
I'm not saying that we can't do that, but we also got to be reasonable too. If the person is only going to make, let's say, several $100,000 on putting the trucks out, and we're going to charge them $1 million to do the road, I don't know if they're going to go for something like that. I'm just putting it out there in that manner. But we will do everything we can to make sure that any repairs, anything has to be done to the road, that the bonding is sufficient. That's why we need help from the highway department and the water department, because that's their job. That's what they do. They do those kind of estimates all the time. So we can give a reasonable bond when in fact, if we give the permission for this road.
But the way he was talking was, don't even jump on you, is that he's going to videotape it and then return it to the way it is now. It's in tough shape now.
So,
Well, in the event it's further damage, the road is X amount of years old, it's been subject to all types of traffic, not just from Morse Brothers over the lifetime of the road. The condition of the road cannot be directly attributable. 100% of that condition of the road is not 100% attributable to Morse Brothers. So, for them to be held responsible to repave the roadway before they start would seem to me, as the applicant's representative, to be a little bit excessive on their end. For us to return it to the condition that is in it before we started does seem to be a reasonable expectation on our side.
and I would think that any repairs they can do on will be better than it was before.
Just took my thunder.
So,
Okay, I'm just thinking it would be a concession to make everybody feel a little bit better, knowing that it would.
well, we've done these contracts before, and we've always been very positive outcome. I mean, I've been on the board long enough to remember when they didn't have bonds put on gravel removal. Bog 18 was the first that we ever had to deal with that because they left a pit in the backyard off of Elm Street. That was the first board, so it's, are there any questions from the gentlemen?
I did have a question. My concern, my name is Jean Cole. I'm on the corner of Lincoln and Short Street. It's actually probably one of the narrowest parts of the street.
It's narrow, yeah.
My concern is just overall safety. Okay, the trucks are going to be coming back and forth. You can't pass two trucks there. But during the day, when school is in session, you've got garbage trucks all over the place. What can we do to make it safer as far as getting everybody to slow down and come through there? Because there's been so many near misses at the corner of 10th Avenue. I've had garbage trucks and cars pull right up on my front lawn to avoid hitting somebody else, all for the fact that somebody's going too fast. I think that's another thing we have to look into, is maybe educate everybody to slow down.
Chief?
Well, I think possibly condition of the permit, and we, again, one of the issues that came up at the last meeting was the transition between the paved and the dirt road there, with the trucks coming home, the kids up there. I think maybe one of the conditions is we can ask for some signage, not necessarily a stop sign, because that's been looked at, but maybe some signage to remind the drivers, or all drivers, to pay attention to these sorts of things. Again,
We could put one in there as residents and neighborhood, and they have to slow down to 30.
I'd like to think that all of these drivers are professional and all have that in the back of the head, but we all need reminding people. So, some signage, some kids in the area, maybe some additional temporary speed limits. I'd be okay with some temporary speed limits, or some temporary stop signs for the course of the work. So I think that would help. Unfortunately, we can't make the road any bigger, and it is what it is. But like you said, some education, some reminders about how we let people drive there to be ready.
Anything other? Does that answer your question, Gene?
Yeah, the only other thing I'd say is the corner of 11th Avenue and 12th. When you pull, you can't see past the trucks that are parked right there. And coming out of 10th Ave, forget it. I mean, I can back out of my own driveway and something will come over the hill down past 10th Ave. And I swear to God, that thing wasn't there.
You can't see it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got no way to go.
It is a blind spot.
Yeah, it's bad. People, everybody needs to slow
Well,
down.
the only thing we can do, should we give this permit, is to make everybody aware of what's going to be going on, to drive a little bit more careful, because you have to admit, most of the speeding stuff is people live in the neighborhood. They fly up and down the street, and that's slowing down. So that's something that you say educate, but it also takes a little common sense too, that it's a residential neighborhood and they live there, they have kids and stuff that they need to slow down too.
I mean, I think the big thing too is like the rubbish truck drivers, a lot of them, they fly down that street with those great big trucks. It's not just the people that live there.
Okay.
I see it day in and day out. I mean, they hit those bumps in front of my house. I can't even open my china cabinet unless I make sure nothing's come forward on the shelf because it's going to land on the floor. That's how much vibration there is. So if it's just from that, what's going to happen with all these loads of trucks going by? I mean, it's that bad. I mean, Cranberry Harvest can just kind of put up with it, but if you're going to add 1,600 or more loads going through there, there's that bump in front of my house and the whole house shakes and the stuff goes over it.
It's actually going to be a little louder empty than it is full.
It's even worse. I mean, the television, I feel like the neighbors can hear my TV at night because I have to turn it up just for the general noise that's out
So
there.
you're the one they're complaining about?
What's that? It's probably you. I know better. It's probably you.
You know, we laugh and joke about it, you have to forgive me, it's a very serious matter, and I make jest because that lightens the tension a little bit, at least on my part. We will do everything within our power to make sure that if this permit is permitted, that we cover all the bases that we could possibly. That's why we're having the meeting now, so any thoughts that you have can be brought forward and will be part of our decision-making process. Does the board have anything further? No. Do you have anything else to add? You're gonna be making, you say you're gonna make another trip up and down the streets very slowly?
Pardon me?
You're gonna make another trip down the street very slowly?
Yes.
No bumping.
Yes, sir.
If it does go through, or when it does go through, if the trucks do go down there, the best time, I think, is not the summertime when the kids are playing.
Yeah.
It's when school is in session.
Right.
Yeah,
Let's prevent the accident before it even happens.
Yeah, no, that's part of our requirement.
Are you saying the kids are playing in the street?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's what we talked about.
On the end of the dead end street.
Just walk down the street and won't move for you.
Yeah,
that was in
we'll
my
take that in
thought process,
consideration.
too, thinking about
I know
Well, the air is a little heavier, there's a little bit more moisture in the air, and it may make it a little better for it, so.
You know, I mean, we work after school schedule in Watertown, so I mean, they work with our schedule. Kids in the school.
Okay.
My kids would go ride their bikes in the neighborhood and not have to worry with big semis coming up and down.
Well, they can ride it down 12th Avenue, it's fun. It can come down that way. It's a fun place to be.
Can I say something in that respect too? And I don't mean your kids,
Excuse
because I don't even know who they
excuse
are.
me, no conversations across the way.
I'm talking to you.
Okay.
Also, kids have to be respectful too. A lot of times you've got 3 kids walking abreast, they will not move. You have to go around them. Kids zigzagging back and forth across the street. It's like they own the road. So, I mean, that's another aspect there too, especially the older kids.
That's the only,
Yeah, exactly. But you know, the younger kids see it and they come darting out too, and they don't understand.
When you say older kids, you're talking 30, 35?
Maybe.
Okay, if there's no further questions or any input, I'm sorry, Nick.
We've got a water truck.
What's your name?
Dan Gilcoin, I'm on the corner of Lincoln Street and Philadelphia. All these trucks coming out of that dirt road is going to create a lot of dust just from the road, not the road itself. Is there any way we get that road water down?
I think you addressed that at the last
We
meeting.
addressed that at the last meeting.
That's one of the major sources of dust is on the travel route. In fact, it is the major source. So that's what our mitigation measure would be, using water truck or watering, wetting of any gravel roads coming out into Lincoln Street. And within the excavation area itself, within the site, so that we don't get any carryover dust flowing off the site. But it's part of it.
Okay. Dan?
Can I just ask where it is on that map? Where the hill is that we're...
The hill is right here, and it's hard to see it, but forget the name of the section, but there's an elevated hill right here in the center of the bog system, just across from the equipment building that they have that sits over here.
If you go down dirt road, go down the dirt road, you know where the pumping station is, just as you get into the cranberry bogs right there. If you keep following that, you'll see the operation building. That hill just over behind that.
I've never been down.
It's away from the lake. It's like a ridge that runs, it separates one cranberry bog from the other bog. You go around the trees, if that's what you're talking about.
But they propose about this trees down to
Well, they're gonna have to. There are trees, there are pine trees and oak trees, especially growing on that ridge. There are trees growing on it. They're gonna move it down.
All the wood. Is the wood out there?
I have no idea.
No, the wood, I mean, although the wood
Processed.
is cut off, taken, it's probably going to be shipped and shipped to a power plant in Maine. Typically, that's what
Yeah,
goes
that's
on.
what
Some of the hardwood is used as firewood.
That's where it usually
Stumps
is.
are either Wind Road, left on the site, or taken off the site, stockpile, or taken off the site or ground up.
Dan, are you saying you want that part of the conditions, that any
Well,
firewood
yeah.
be trucked over?
Is this adding more trucks? Is this included in the trucks?
We don't have a bylaw about wood removal. The only thing we have in our bylaws is about soil and earth, it's not about trees. So for instance, if someone was just doing clearing of a property, trees only, and not soil, they wouldn't need any equipment unless it was conservation or something like that.
I'm just trying to figure out.
But the short answer is, yeah, obviously it's going to be more trips, but it's not something covered by the permit itself.
I think we should start with the name.
Okay. Anything further? Thank you all very much for coming tonight, and believe me, I live in the neighborhood too. We're going to make sure as best we can everything is taken care of. And Gene, I heard that.
Is that going to be
Thank
another
you.
date?
Okay, thanks very much. Well,
Yeah, we need a date.
Well, when we meet the next,
Well,
22nd?
we meet the 26th. Right now, Mr. Clausen is back at 8:30, so if the board felt we were going to get that done in 15 minutes, if everything was signed, sealed, and delivered, we could continue this to 8:45 that night.
I think that's a good idea.
So the board will continue this
8:45.
hearing on July 26th, 8:45.
Where are you coming from?
not a board set.
Well, at least it's an easy
At
drive.
least it's coming back this way. You
It's a nice ride.
That's being,
come up 195 and come around into it.
Yes. good thing.
195, 495, 58.
Oh, those English here.
Okay, so the 26th at 8:45?
8:45.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
very good. Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
That's average though.
I'm used to flying for 130.
Yeah. I know. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Mr. Domestico.
Thank you all for coming.
I stopped there and going,
We're right on time.
no, I will.
You all don't have to sit back, and you can move up front if you like.
Yeah.
You know, we don't.
Take 45. I know, I feel so happy for you. This is gonna be, I know, it's gonna be, I know. And this is gonna be a big one. We'll have to continue because we have everybody else here. So we could do some testimony and then continue.
Wow.
That's what my suggestion would be. Just because we have so
dog
many,
lovers in the audience.
like, it would be terrible,
I
but
see a lot of dog lovers in the audience.
we did attend 3 times. You know?
We have a scheduled appointment hearing for Jennifer Harmon Schultz dog complaint. Is everyone here who has a complaint or say? Yep.
Is Ms. Harmon here?
Yeah, Ms. Harmon had contacted the Board of Selectmen's office today. She said she had not been adequately notified about the hearing. The board had sent a certified letter, which was brought by the notice to the post office 3 times. The post office then returned the letter to us. We then, once that happened, we called and we also emailed her a copy of the letter. Someone dropped off a letter today, just before the board's meeting tonight, concerning that she has a medical reason for not being here. However, my recommendation to the board is that given the number of people here, that the board hear evidence from the people who are here, then the board can continue, if it wishes to, the hearing until the 26th. Ms. Harmon would then be given an opportunity to provide whatever evidence or questions or whatever, but I don't see any reason for tonight to simply postpone everything for 2 weeks, given the number of people who made the trip up here.
I agree.
Anyone who may have a statement or pertinent to the information that was delivered concerning the complaint, you need to be sworn in. Give your name.
So everybody who is going to
Make a statement.
testify, please stand.
All of you, all the neighbors that are going to make
If you're going to
statements.
say anything during this hearing, if you're going to testify during this hearing, please stand.
Okay.
And if Pam doesn't recognize you, if you could please give your name.
Better safe than sorry.
Tom and Nancy. Spell?
H-E-I-K-I-L-A.
Okay. We have,
Should the chief?
what?
Pass your bedtime.
Is somebody else?
No. I don't know if the chief has to because he's the chief.
Okay. And
Just in case.
Should you?
Should I?
Anybody else being, okay, now.
Then,
Is everybody else, do I got it? Yeah, everybody else, okay.
okay, so you could swear everybody in.
Okay, you guys can raise your right hand, and do you all swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, during these proceedings with the selectmen?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, do we have one central individual who complained?
Mr. Clausen.
This
Like deja vu.
Deja vu? No.
All over.
Yeah, deja vu.
Continuation of the dog barking for almost 7 years now. It's been ongoing, it's daily. My son has a small clip of maybe a 4 or 5 second video if you'd like to listen.
Sure.
I mean, is this a copy you're gonna give us, or you just wanna show it?
Could probably email it to you guys.
It's probably a good
You'll
idea.
email it to
Yeah,
Mr. Sealy.
I think that's.
I think that's probably the best bet.
We can set it up and you can see the dates. The video has the dates and it's only like 3 seconds for each date that you can get it. In different times. It also
Maybe
has the
bring
time.
it up maybe in front of you. From the last one, we can all see it.
And, yes. Do you have the volume up?
I'll try, I'll see.
No, see.
That wouldn't have worked well without the
No, all
volume.
right. You see that, all right? Pick it up.
When we're about seeing it, we're about hearing.
You guys see it? Nothing. You need to see it.
If you could just make note of the times. I mean, it's
Yeah.
4 in the morning, 9 at night.
5 o'clock in the morning.
Different times of the day.
Crickets are loud.
$4:52 a.m. 5:25 a.m. 9:05 p.m. 6:29 a.m. 9:05 wasn't so good.
Also, those are taken from my front door, from my
I was just going to ask you
backyard,
to put that on the
right
record.
near the barn, all over the place.
5:10 a.m.
Maybe for perspective, you know, I think people know, how far away is your front door, the barn and stuff from the property?
Probably 1,500 feet.
Football field?
6:46 a.m.
Was that?
Football field, Lynn?
Yeah.
No. it's a
Well,
gym.
more than that, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm sure no one in the audience can hear any of this, but
Okay.
I think that gets the point across.
Yeah, so they have football field about 900 feet open, so about a football field and a half.
Small.
Relevant now.
Those are
Thank
100
you.
yards.
Sean,
1,500 feet.
That's the truth.
I just would like to just give you a little background of this particular hearing. So, a few months ago, I know she's not here, but Ms. Harmon had gone to the Zoning Board of Appeals in order to increase the dog number from 50 dogs on site to 100 dogs on site. During that time, Mr. Clausen and his son had played that tape, and later on, off camera, after the meeting, Ms. Harmon was concerned that perhaps it was fabricated, that he had just put that together. And so I said, well, I mean, she said, you can, every time you've been there in the years past, there hasn't been excessive barking. Again, the last time that I had sort of done my research, there had only been 25 dogs. And, I had never heard of any complaints, and we can talk about that afterwards, but I was quite surprised that this had been ongoing, because I had stated to some of the neighbors that had I known, we certainly would have held a hearing, and I had offered one at that time. After the second hearing, again, more neighbors came forward, and as you all were there, I asked Mr. Clausen, at a meeting, do you want the formal dog hearing, because the barking could be excessive. So what I had decided to do is just do my own research, just to either collaborate the video or dispel the video. And so I went to Mr. Clausen's property at least 5 times, and I have my own recordings at different times of the day. And I won't play all of it for a very long time, but I wanted to go at different times. I wanted to go early in the morning, because I know that Mr. Bagley had mentioned brushing his teeth and hearing the barking, and I wanted to do it late at night. And so I tried to do different times of days, and I tried to do when you had a horse show, so perhaps maybe that was aggravating the dogs. I know they're not supposed to be barking at all, but I have been trying to do different times of days for the benefit of the doubt for Ms. Harmon. So I'll just, again, I won't play all of it, but wait a minute. I have short ones that won't take too much of your time. This is 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Oh, no, wrong one. Oh, that's got to be it. This is at 4:51 in the morning. That's better. You can hear birds.
I see this, is she raising birds or dogs? You may have to have a bird here.
No, you can hear it. It goes on. But... And I can tell you that it went on for 4 minutes straight. At 4:51 in the morning. I went again at different times. So here's another one. This is at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I can tell you that I did not go once without it being some kind of barking. This is at 8 in the morning. So I just want to, before we go on in full disclosure, I just want the neighbors to know that I have witnessed a part of it. Again, I went, I think 5 or 6 times. I had to go away, in between, so I've tried to go as often as I can to be able to sort of listen to what is part of your daily lives. So.
I guess I'll let some of the other neighbors speak their experiences over the last several years.
Could you just explain to the board so that we know why you didn't feel that you could come and complain about these dogs barking over?
2012 was the last time I was in before the board, and at that time I felt I was attacked personally by the different boards in the town. I had, wiring inspectors, I had, conservation, I had everyone up there. I was complaining about the dog barking, and they were combing through my farm, trying to find different issues. And then also, when I had made the complaints to the police, they eventually told me that, just log it in, and they're not going to do anything about it, they just log it. That's what they were told to do. It's just to log in the complaints. So I stopped calling the police, and I had no place, and my first concern is naturally to run the farm, and I didn't want to go through all the issues of, it felt like I was being attacked by everyone, for complaining about something that was severely impacting me. It's daily all the time. It still is. Yesterday was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. During the horse show, it's horrendous. It's embarrassing for me, for the clients that are there. They ask me, I continuously get told, how do you stand this? But I would send it, what do I do? I don't want to do something that is illegal.
Fair enough. 2012 is when I went down to the farm on several occasions. I went down to the farm when the first hearing we had because I wanted to know myself, and there was some barking at that time, not as an excessive, at least in my mind, because I'm used to having dogs around me, so it's not a big deal. But I guess I feel a little awkward at this moment because I really like to question Ms. Harmon, and I'm not saying that I shouldn't have enough statement from the people, but I'd like to hear from the others what time of day and what really changes. Anyone else like to speak to this issue?
We lived in Halifax.
And you are?
I'm Nancy Paul and Type Club, 19 Plymouth Street. We're about 300 to 400 feet from them. We've been in Halifax 4 years, and when we first moved in, we were calling, complaining about the dogs, and we were also told nothing's going to get done. So we stopped calling. But we've had family leave because the dogs, you can't have a cookout in your backyard if you get dogs screaming. My kids are afraid to go out in the backyard because our shepherds get loose, and they're not nice. I got pinned in a couple of months ago. I'm not afraid of dogs. And
before you go any further, did you call the dog officer about the dog running loose?
The police come down, and we watched them go back. She denied they were her dogs. But literally, I had teeth shown on me. Yeah, on my back porch at dinner time. And I have a 9-month-old baby in the house. And, what do you do when you now have dogs loose? They're barking, they're showing teeth in your yard. And that's my biggest complaint because you can't deal with her. She'll tell you they're not hers. They've come miraculously from someplace else. The barking is ridiculous. We've gotten woken up at like 10, 11 o'clock at night. You get the baby down. You open a window because it's a gorgeous night. You're woken up. Now I'm putting the baby back up. It's a vicious cycle, and it has to stop. I mean, other than putting my house back on the market, it has to stop. I don't know what the solution is, but it is miserable. People don't want to come over and have a cookout, or you stay in. We're a prisoner to our own home, is basically what it is boiled down to. My kids don't go out in their yard. And if they have their friends over or we have company over, we have to stay in the house. And that's no way to live for anybody.
I agree. Just a moment. Are you all set?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am?
Just so you're aware, Troy, I was at the meeting last night at the zoning meeting, and Mrs. Roy made it perfectly clear that 3 registered letters went to Ms. Harmon. And she said last night that she did not receive them and that she had a prior engagement. And now you get a letter today saying that there's a medical issue why she can't appear. I think that all goes to character. And if I were her and this was my business and she made it very clear last night, she was very concerned for her neighbors, and she would do nothing to cause them any kind of difficulty or whatever. Now, these are people that are prisoners in their own home. Now, she had this whole song and dance last night about how she would comply. Well, if that were me, unless there was a death in the family, I don't think there's any reason she shouldn't be here. So,
Other than
you
the
know,
meeting, other than the meeting that took place last night, have you yourself or anyone that you were aware of heard the dogs barking or any
no,
noise
because I
and
don't
sort of
live
stuff?
there. But,
Okay, I just want to make clear, I understand
yeah.
what you're saying is relevant, but I wanted to make sure. Yes,
Linda Ford from Fell Street. I'm not a neighbor either, but I did attend last night's meeting. And they said last night that this has been going on since May. And my question was how many times they've asked for a business plan or anything from Ms. Harmon. And last night they made a third request. It just seems like this is, I cannot believe for 7 years these people have had to deal with this. I can't imagine it. It's horrible.
It's not right.
It's not right. 7 years? And they make a phone call and there's no help, there's nothing? Like, I'm fortunate that I don't have to listen to this, but I went last night out of curiosity and it was amazing. And you know, so we got another time to come back, and then we come back again. And nothing was ever put forward what the board wanted. So it just seems like,
well,
no.
that's another board.
I know, but it's,
What I'm saying is,
It's the
I
same
hear
thing,
what
like,
both
we're
you're
all just-
saying. This is just the second time since I've been sitting on this board that this has come forward. Because we don't get the complaints when they come through. If we do get a complaint, have we got a complaint from you that the dog was running loose and threatened to bite you, we would have heard a hearing then. We weren't made aware of that. I'm not making any excuses, I'm just saying, this board was not made aware of.
I had a police officer that night at my house.
Well, how do we make everyone aware? Because this is just falling into different boards and different days and different years. And there has to be a solution. I mean, what are the bylaws? She's in strict violation of the bylaws. I mean, how many chances do you get, Troy? I mean, I'm a dog trainer. So for you to tell me that Mary, that doesn't surprise me. She's got isolated dogs that will do nothing but show aggression when you do this to your dog. So this is a bigger problem. You know, it's got to stop. And someone's got to take a stand and say, all right, this is enough.
I hear you. I'm sorry, yes?
I just have a question. I have a bunch of dogs. I had a barking complaint against me about 2 years ago. The police officer, whoever that came to my house, and the animal control officer said that, you know, I'm violating the bylaw, my dogs are barking, it was 10 o'clock at night, and if it happens again, my dogs will be taken away from me. Fix it, or else. And that was only one complaint. So how come, you know...
I can't answer how come.
I'm just curious. I'm told that I'm violating a bylaw, and my dogs can be ordered off the property after one complaint. And it sounds like this has been going on. I mean, I fixed the problem. My dogs don't bark. I haven't had a complaint in 2 years because I don't want to risk losing my dogs. I'm not going to violate a bylaw on purpose and risk getting in trouble and losing my dogs. But I mean, it sounds like this has been going on a really long time. How come the bylaws work? You know, I had to follow the bylaw, and apparently she's not.
All right, John.
The way it works is if a complaint is brought to the board can deal with it. If a complaint's not brought to the board can't deal with anything that isn't before the board. And I apologize for whatever happened with, you know, I don't know whether the animal control officer, for instance, was notified about dogs running loose or not. We can go back and look. In essence, if people aren't satisfied with the response they get from any department, police department, fire department, highway department, certainly you should bring that to the board. And that's what's happening now. And what happened in this particular case is that Mr. Clausen specifically complained to the board during a different meeting about the noise from the dogs. Ms. Roy specifically said to him, do you want a hearing about this matter? Mr. Clausen said, yes. That's why we're having the hearing. That's why you were notified. And that's why the board is listening to the complaints specifically about the noise on the dogs. If there are other complaints about the dogs, then we'll have a separate hearing about those specific complaints. But the original complaint is about noise. If we have situations with dogs running loose and such, we'll also have a hearing about that, and the board will deal with that. But the thing is, one of the important points, as much as I understand that other residents have an interest in this, the board has to hear evidence about the matter at hand. And that if you don't have specific documents, evidence, testimony about the dogs barking for this hearing, as much as a board can listen to you and you should be able to participate in this hearing, if the board made a decision simply because someone on Fuller Street, let's say, was saying, well, I don't think these dogs should be here, but they don't have any evidence about the dogs barking, the board can't take that into account in making its decision. The board has to go with the evidence that's brought forward. So if there are other neighbors here who want to testify about the dogs barking, this is the perfect time to do that. If there are neighbors, and we've already heard that tonight, who have other complaints, the board will take that into account and start the process for a hearing. They'll probably start with the animal control officer and say, what was the investigation like? What did you conclude? Did you tell Ms. Harmon if that was the case? Or for that matter, for the police department, did you tell Ms. Harmon what course that she needed to take? Has it happened since then? Have the dogs been running since the date of the original complaint? And if the board feels it's necessary to have a hearing, it would. Or the complainant can come to the board and say, I want a hearing. Despite what the ACO determined, despite what the police department determined, I want a hearing. You have a right to have a hearing about your complaint if you're not satisfied with the response.
And I've been on this board a long time, maybe too long for some people, but I'm not saying it as a brag or anything else, but I've had to make decisions to put a dog down, have dogs taken out of town, denied kennel license to people. So it's not that we have an absorbent like that knows me very well. I love animals. But if there's the quality of life is important to me, and if it's some way it's being disturbed, that disturbs me a great deal. That if you call the animal control officer and they came over and didn't do anything about the dog running loose, that bothers me more than anything else than the barking. It really does, because that
To be honest with you, I never saw the dog officer. A police officer came when we made the call, and then there was no follow-up with the dog officer.
Well, what I'm just saying to you, and I'm not trying to make an excuse for anyone, if in fact, during the last 7 years, someone that came and gave a complaint, serious complaint to us about the dogs barking and having a problem, we would have had a hearing.
And in fact, the board has held hearings during that time about these dogs and the noise, and the board's dealt with the issues and tried to resolve them. And if we don't, if the things that happen don't resolve the issue, then by all means, the neighbors should come back and say, this isn't resolved, I want another hearing on the matter, this is still going on.
Right, and the last time that we held a hearing for this particular dog owner, there were only 25 dogs on the property. I happened to find out that the zoning board of appeal had approved double. This was a few years ago, and I had gone to them and said, what are you doing? Like, we don't want to have dog hearings anymore. And things were quiet, so I really had no idea until I happened to go to a zoning board of appeals meeting for a completely different reason. And Ms. Harmon came in for this request, and as a result of that, I requested that the zoning board of appeal, before they made their decision, look at the property, look at soundproofing, to make sure that there were spaces for the dogs to be in a good way. And so the process has begun. Again, you know, I did hear at the second hearing, a lot of the neighbors had showed up, and I would like to hear from the Bagleys if they're willing to speak. I know they spoke at that zoning board of appeals meeting, and you know, obviously, I think for you who have gone to the zoning board, I keep reading the bylaw, and I will read it out loud. Again, I know our selectmen know, but I'll do it for our audience, because we're on camera. But this is the most important bylaw that we have, and this is what we actually need to resolve in this forum, not the zoning board of appeals, which obviously approves the license for the kennel. So what we need to do is, it's about disturbances. And it reads, no person shall own or keep in this town any dog which, by barking, howling, or any other manner disturbs the quiet of any person. And that's really what we need to deal with. And I know this hearing should be continued so that Ms. Harmon could be here so we can talk with her about different ways that we can accomplish that. And I know at the zoning board of appeals meeting, she did say, as Ms. Corby had stated, is that you know, she doesn't want to be a burden to the neighbors, and I'm hopeful that she will sit and work with us in order to accomplish that. But I did ask the zoning board of appeals, they're not making their decision until I think August 8th on the additional 50 dogs, that they not make any sort of ruling until we have determined here the noise factor, because that's what this board has control over. So
Can you
I
give
would
me an
like to,
approximate date as to when you had the running dog problem?
In the last 2 months.
Okay, 2 months. So 2 months ago, let's say.
Yeah.
Okay, great. No, I'll check with the police department, we'll follow up. Okay.
It was around dinner time.
Okay, well.
The dog invited us at the dinner, is that what you're saying? Okay.
I'll follow up,
The
thank you.
meeting with the ZBA, I think, was in May.
Yeah.
And you brought it up then?
Yeah.
So I don't know, that might be a little more than 2 months.
So more like around, yeah, about 2 months to me.
Okay, thanks.
could we hear from the Bagleys next, please?
If they're willing to speak to the issue.
We hear the dogs. We hear the dogs a lot. I get up early Saturday, Sunday morning, I'm back for 10 o'clock, at 5 o'clock in the morning, because I just get up early, and I hear them, and I leave my videos, and I send them to her at 5 o'clock in the morning. And she's like, okay, I'll fix that, okay, I'll fix that. And then she'll take a dog from behind my yard, and then she'll, you know, kind of move him around to, I guess, try to make it seem as though she did something. We could never sleep with a window being in. We've got a nice cool night instead of having the air conditioning on, like some, you know, fresh air. You could never sleep with the windows open. And this has been going on for years, but I'm just the type of people, with this type of people, that don't like to have problems with my neighbors, we kind of keep to ourselves, but it's just now got to the point where I will come to this, because it really, as much as I like her, we're friendly, you gotta speak up, because we can't sit without a window open. And if you're outside and you're doing yard work, and you hear those dogs, it's like almost like one dog bit the other, or what's going on there, is it the collar that's chopping on, or are they being bitten by it? It's terrible noise.
I believe it's the shock collar that from the dogs barking.
Yeah, it's not just like one yelp.
It goes.
It's like 20 seconds. It's just screaming like somebody's forcing the dog. It's terrible. And you wait for it almost makes me feel like you want to run over there
With the collar on.
and save the dog.
Yeah.
On top of the noise and the barking, which early morning, late night. I'm not home during the day, but it's during the day as well when I'm here. She was supposed to move the dog from my backyard, where she's keeping some, from, I think, the ZBA meeting, ordered her to.
Yeah, so
She did move them the first night, now they're back.
they are back, because I was there on Sunday morning for, I went with the ZBA to look at the facility, because that particular meeting was to sort of see where the new dogs would be, and she talked about moving more dogs closer to your house, and I had expressed at the meeting last night and at the site visit that I didn't think that would be a good idea, that there were, the pen that's closest to your house used to house the juvenile dogs, so these are dogs that are been identified to be good breeding dogs that they want to keep, but they're not quite old enough to breed. So they've now moved the younger dogs into the barn at night, but they've moved the older dogs. So there are still dogs in that area, and I think I counted, I think there were at least 6 in that particular thing.
How
So
far is your property line from?
you can see it. I took a picture. You can.
Probably like 75 feet.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
It's pretty close. And I wish Ms. Harmon could have been here because I really wanted to be able to talk about different ways that we could, lower the noise factor by perhaps, when I was in the large barn, I was sort of looking, going, well, maybe we can move more dogs in here. And of course, it's closer to you. But I've also talked to a contractor that does soundproof insulation, that perhaps that's something she could consider. So, I'm sorry that she couldn't be here, and I know we'll continue it, but you have our commitment that you should not be living in this way at all. And, it's our responsibility to fix that.
I take a little different approach. It's her responsibility to fix it.
Yeah.
I understand you're trying to be helpful and come up with some solutions, but at the end of the day, it's her responsibility. And she needed to be here, and she needs to come up with a plan that's going to rectify this and justify to me that this noise keeps going on, at least my personal opinion.
If I may, just because you brought up about the soundproofing, actually in her permit, there's a soundproofing requirement to maintain soundproofing, and Mr. Clausen said he doesn't believe that anything was ever done about that. And it was brought up at one of the ZBA meetings, to have her ask what soundproofing was done. And my recollection is it was just a statement about trees he had to put up as part of agreeing with the town, might have been part of that years ago, trees that went up. Well, just, but that's something in the agreement, or a special permit.
Yes.
But you don't know for a fact whether she did the soundproofing or not.
Well,
Haven't been able to get a clear answer. It's probably,
I can guarantee there's no sound.
it doesn't appear that there, well, again, I'm not an expert,
Yeah.
but there were gentlemen there that said that.
And I'm not, you have to understand where I come from. I come from a law enforcement background, and you get that definitive proof that something's going on. Hearsay is not good, except for the barking. That's good. The noise.
I bring it up to the board to ask her when she's here. It's just to let you know, it's in the permit, and that'd be, I guess, a question of what steps are done in our town.
When the ZBA went to visit the site on Sunday, did anyone see any insulation in any of the buildings?
So, yes, one of the ZBA persons saw older insulation, the pink stuff shoved in, but it wasn't, it doesn't look like it's the professional.
That's not soundproofing.
Right.
Insulation.
So, some of the barn that was closest to your house, the first time I went on a tour, I think back in May, everything, all the dates are sort of, coming together. There's been so many hearings, but there was a large hole in that particular building. And I could imagine that you could hear a lot of sound because, there was a huge hole that was not created, I don't think, by the dogs. I think this was previously a horse barn. So I think the horse had eaten through, and now the dogs were being housed there, and I think that's why the sound had escaped. And I think at one of the ZBA meetings, maybe you were there, I don't know, that I had asked that if they had plugged that, because we knew that was the source of the noise. So it was plugged when I saw it on Sunday, but that has not really changed your sound.
If I may speak, this is July 12th, and summer's almost half over. I've listened to this every day for this whole summer. This is the 7th summer that I'm going to be listening to this. So if we could somehow move this along to resolve this dog barking issue, that I don't have to go through the whole summer.
I think we're going to be back in 2 weeks.
But I'm happy to even, I don't know what your schedules are, I'm happy to even hold it before 2 weeks, because again, this is something that's really horrific for the neighbors. So I'm happy if you guys have a schedule that will allow to meet before 2 weeks on this particular issue.
It might be good to hold a meeting just for this.
Yes.
The screeching that Tom and my other neighbors were talking about, that happens maybe 10 times a day. It goes on and on. It goes right through your body. And then just the normal barking goes on the rest of the day. But that screeching, is someone's killing dogs over there, at minimum 10 times a day.
So,
And
excuse me. So, what I'm going to ask you to do for me, and whether you want to do it or not, is to put down in writing the number of years, dates, times that you've heard this information. And that way we have it in case for some reason you can't make it to the meeting, on your schedule, we have something, statements from you as to what has been going on. I would appreciate that. That's always helpful.
What we,
Take your time.
what we could do perhaps, Troy, before they even leave, is come up with a date so that they're completely
Yeah.
aware. And I think that the police chief has a
Well, I
comment.
bet the chief,
I'm not defending or making excuses for anything. If we drop the ball along the way on some of these calls, I'll just take responsibility for that. We're not unsympathetic with the issues that are going on here, but just for clarifications, there's no mechanism for us to actually do something during these calls. We try to gather as much information and pass it along to the people that needs to be passed along. And again, if we drop the ball along the way someplace, my apologies. But for future reporting, please call us. And again, you may get the response that all we can do is log it, but at least that's a record that's been logged, and we'll pass it along to the board and make sure that the right people see it. And if you get a response from anybody that's under my control and you don't get a follow-up and you don't get the response that you're happy with, please call me personally. I mean, I take calls all the time, so don't be afraid to follow up on some of these things. You know, we're here to do what we do, and unfortunately, again, I don't have the mechanism to fix these things. I can only do is report it, pass it along. But again, if we drop the ball, my apologies. We'll look at some of these calls and make sure we follow up. And if you don't get satisfaction from people that show up, please call me and we'll take care of it.
and the other thing is that you can call this office if you have a complaint and you're not satisfied with the results that you got from whether it be calling the dog office, the police department, whoever you call. And I say this emphatically, if we don't know there's a problem, we can't deal with it. And for whatever reason, we don't get the phone calls to say the dog's been running through your yard barking and biting people, or it's been barking all night for the last 7 years. This is my first time hearing of this for a while. I haven't heard of it. And believe me, there would be a reaction to it. I don't actually know what the answer to this problem is. Maybe something really drastic. I don't know at this point. But I still would like to give an opportunity to hear from Ms. Harmon, you know, to either refute or give a reason why. But in all fairness, I've heard what you said. I'm not pleased with what I'm hearing, you know, but I'm more distressed about the fact that we weren't notified. You know, so we could at least have given the opportunity to do something about it. You know, I have people that have come to me at my other office down in Walmart, you know, and go on one side and down the other side. Well, you're not doing this good. Well, when did this happen? Well, you should have known. And I say this with all candor. Unless you text me, fax me, tweet me, come to the meeting, because my ability to read minds only extends for 15 feet. I can't do anything further than that. We have to know if we're to act on it. You know, please. I think we're probably one of the most open boards there are. All always outside. Kim's available. She's got her nose. I mean, she's involved in everything. So she's there, you know. And Tom and I. So we want to do what's right. We have a board here that's interested in doing what's right. The next question is, what's the right thing to do? You know, because everybody has legal rights, and we're going to make sure we don't step on somebody's neck and do it wrong. We have a lawyer in the audience. He understands what I'm saying.
Oh, and I just add that a lot of people don't realize the procedures to do things, and I know, because it's not until I get a call, but what do I get to do about this, and then tell them, because this is a statute that brings it here, many people probably aren't aware of, and stuff, and it's, and that's I think that's really what the issue is people, they don't know where to go, and they go to the people that don't have, that don't hear it. And I think a lot of this came up now because of the ZBA application. And I've noted in the past, this is all part of their ZBA public records, that the permit was modified, it's like consecutively, year after year, increasing the dogs without any notice to the abutters. And I contend that that's not correct. So no one had any notice that the dogs, that was going on with the dogs being increased, notice to go to them until this hearing was publicized. And now the abutters know what's going on and everything's coming back up to the issue.
Okay. Well, can we just decide on a date?
Yes,
for the
so would you
continuation of
like to
this?
do it next Tuesday?
That's fine.
Does next Tuesday work for
You
you?
have to pay me extra to come in on Tuesday.
Does next Tuesday work for everybody here that they can come back next Tuesday?
What time? 7:30?
Why don't we do it a little,
That's the only thing on the agenda, right?
it's the only thing on the agenda, so if you want to do 7:30, we can. Does that work for you?
Sure.
Everybody 7:30 works for you? We appreciate you coming out a second time, and I know sometimes it's difficult because they are your neighbors and you're friendly, and you worry about retaliation or whatever, so we know it's not easy for you, but we appreciate that you take the time
Sure.
to let us know.
Yes.
You know, you were talking about everybody has rights, and those dogs have rights too.
Yeah.
And
My point
nobody
exactly.
that I know, and I as a personal trainer, would never leave a shock collar on a dog to wear 24/7. And so that screeching that you're hearing is a dog that's in pain. And so now there has to be some light shed on the humanity and the inhumane treatment of these dogs. So that all comes into play too. So don't, it's not the dog's fault, as you're well aware. So all of us as dog owners, we're responsible for our dogs. So, it's not the dog's fault. It's the environment they're living in.
I've never had a dog hearing. I've had a lot of people hearings, but never
But
a
they have
dog hearing.
rights too.
Could I
It's
just,
called the Animal Welfare Act.
I don't know if this is still accurate, but I can tell you that as part of the agreement many, many years ago when there were just 25 dogs, we had come to an agreement of when the dogs were outside, what hours they were outside, because there was an issue. It was extra loud during the day when they were outside. And so that came to the agreement of the bark collars, that they would be worn outside between the hours of 8 and 8 when the dogs are out. And then in the barn, I believe the bark collars are removed. I don't know if that's still accurate, but the tapes or when I've been there, it's been 4:30 in the morning or 11 o'clock at night when the dogs should be in the barn. And so I don't know that they're working. I did hear a little bit of the screeching. I didn't tape it. It was too troubling for me, to be honest with you.
I'll just comment out, you have to give her the statute. There's another statute that addresses what she's talking about, a procedure. For that.
Okay.
And you're referring, Kim, just for clarification, you're referring to the Board of Appeals?
No, I'm referring
No,
to
the
a
Board of
hearing
Selectmen.
that we had many, into probably 2012, when there were just 25 dogs on site, and there were some issues with barking during the day and certainly at night, but it was quite loud for you during the day. And I don't know, I can't remember, to be honest with you, if the bark collars had been used before, and perhaps, no, was that part of,
That's why I'm
Well,
thinking.
we'll pull the records out.
yeah, I apologize for not
They were
knowing.
noisy then, and they're still noisy.
No, I understand that, Mr.
Still
Clausen.
noisy.
I understand,
Yeah,
and obviously it's gonna be even more noisy because there's double the dogs from when the
Yeah, I
last
think
time we...
that back in 2012, she was only permitted for 15. It was right after that, the ZBA gave her up to 25 without any us notification.
And then
And then from
50,
25 to 50.
Yes,
which is a lot of dogs.
so, I just didn't,
Okay.
no, I just, yeah,
Kim?
I understand your concern, I really do, and I share them, but I just want you to know that I don't believe it's 24/7.
We will not resolve the issue tonight. If I've heard from everyone that wishes to speak on this issue, especially neighbors, then what I'd like to do is continue this meeting to next Tuesday at 7:30. It'll be the first thing on the agenda and the only thing we should have on the agenda unless Charlie comes up with he always does.
We should
Come up.
make,
And I will make a suggestion that we in fact have a letter delivered maybe by police officer or with the dog officer or someone to make sure she gets the letter notified that in fact the meeting concerned her. So that way we're covered. Yes?
Can I just clarify something? So when the initial permit was for, say, 15 dogs, and that was back in 2012, and there...
2010.
Okay, whatever. And so there seemed to be a noise issue back then.
Correct.
Yet we increased to 25, and then we've increased to 50, and now we're thinking about 100. Is that the zoning board of appeals?
Yes,
that does that?
that's the zoning board of appeals.
And they're not required to notify us when they do this type of things.
Well, they should.
Are they required to notify the abutters?
No.
Yes.
yes.
They said no last night.
Yeah, they did.
Said no last night.
They said they don't have to notify us, which was kind of odd.
Yeah, they did.
Charlie? Okay. All right, thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Change this.
Thank you.
We will be back here at 7:30 next Tuesday.
Thank you very much.
And I apologize for any
So 9:30.
misery that you're going through.
Thank you.
Yep, 9:30.
To the meat.
Okay, we've done Morse Brothers. We just, I'll walk through this as well as I can, as fast as I can, since obviously I'm not going to. Zoning violation 35 Hayward Street, this was an illegal apartment. The building inspector originally notified the property owner of the illegality, told him to bring it into compliance. The property owner appealed to the ZBA. The property owner is now withdrawn the appeal, so the building inspector is given him 10 days to
Yeah.
get this matter rectified, and we'll see what happens, but we've been working with land use council on that, so we'll see how that ends up. Pam provided you with a list of carryover accounts. These are ones that you would carry over the amounts remaining, the balances remaining.
Line item transfer from gas or...
No, these are carryover, there's a list that she gave you,
The blue,
looking like
behind
this.
the blue.
Behind the blue, she
Keep
says.
going, keep water, what's in the agenda.
These are good.
Too much paper.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Goes in there.
Want me to help them?
Do you have yours?
Well, I already looked at it.
Where is it?
I think you got that. Look through the blue.
Here it is, let's see.
This,
Last page, yep.
the last page, it's on the back
The way it's
side.
listed, well, the way it's listed in the agenda is the way I put it in the packet.
Oh, go ahead. Be efficient.
Why?
Make it difficult.
Okay, so we got,
I'm used to disorganization.
You got the thickest
So
one.
there's about
Do it.
18 accounts to move various funds from fiscal 16 to fiscal 17 based on this list. Pam has asked for the board to approve carrying forward the amounts for these accounts to fiscal 17. These
do we
are-
need to read them all? You got,
No, I make that motion.
We'll include this in the minutes of...
I will.
okay.
I'll make the motion that we carry over these balances.
And there's one article that has to be carried over.
Is-
Yes, and then the article of the Mon Pond Pond
Is there a
Management.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Bottom office.
Aye.
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 Okay, we talked about just the cost, we've done the dog carrying, now we get to do the line item transfers. Does the board want me to read them, and then the board can approve them en masse?
If you feel so like it.
So $1,534.06 from water, gas, and rural water retirement, $1,500 from trash collection, recycling center expense, $277 from fire station maintenance, fire vehicle maintenance, $300 from treasurer clerical to treasurer expense, $484.69 from office machines and data processing, $30 from regulatory wages to building inspector expense, $11,428.76 from school, elementary school expenses, special needs tuition, $60,609.06 from vocational ed to special needs tuition, and $71,145.57 from special needs transportation to special needs tuition, and $118 from veterans benefits to veterans expense. Just to explain on the three school ones.
I was about to ask that the question.
Well, there's two things. One, technically, they don't have to even ask for this because while the town votes at town meeting various line items for the regular school budget, vocational ed, tuition and such, in state law, that's all one line. Silver Lake assessment is over on one side. But
In other words, one amount of money is voted and they can use the money as they
they
please.
could, yeah, legally it ends up being one amount. However, as a matter of procedure, they like to make sure that they've gotten the approvals from the finance committee and the board of selectmen. In essence, what happened is we had students come in to into Halifax during the year, special education students. Even though we didn't budget for them, we're obligated to pay for the tuition and such. So we ended up with overages on the special ed tuition. Luckily for us, the school does have funds left in its other accounts to help cover the costs of the special ed tuition. They don't have to come to the finance committee for a reserve fund transfer or go to begging other departments. So that's, even though the amounts seem large, they're justifiable, let's put it that way. So what I would ask for the board is to approve the transfers.
Someone going to move that?
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
And then what happens is the board will sign off, and the finance committee already signed off on the left, the board signs over on the right. The EPA official notified me that we have a problem with chlorine in the effluent water, not the water system water. As most people would know, we have a treatment plant over in Richmond Park for the treatment of our water supply. Part of that is the chlorination of the water. Obviously, we want to kill the germs and bacteria and such. What happens then as part of that treatment process is effluent is released from the treatment facility. The EPA has noted that the testing of the effluent shows that the chlorine levels for that effluent are higher than what the EPA allows. We've given the water department 20 days to provide a response, explain what's going on and what they plan on doing about it. There's no action for the board to take, but the board should be notified about that. Let's see, Mass Interlocal Insurance Association Insurance Agreement, we're a member of Maya, and we need to sign the agreement concerning our responsibilities and their responsibilities providing insurance. In this case, the board, minus Kim, would vote to have the chair sign on behalf of the board.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Excuse me.
You have to say aye.
Yeah. Aye.
I'm going to say abstain.
So if
because
I'm a
on the
member, I
board.
sign here?
Yes. On Ponce Pond, I'm going to talk about a couple of times, but one note, we got a copy of a letter from, was sent to Paul Collis and Jack O'Leary of the Central Plymouth County Water District Commission. They were invited to meet with Brockton City Council Finance Committee next Monday night at 7 p.m. to talk about the water supplies and such.
Is that the right spot?
Yes. We'll get it done. Not that the board was invited or the town, but we just wanted to make sure the board was aware of it. We may get an invitation from the city council itself to meet with the city council sometime this fall about Mont Ponce Pond. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I know Mr. Collis won't be able to attend the meeting next Monday. I don't know about Mr. O'Leary. Local sales tax on meals, the board, the town meeting approved this back in May, went into effect on July 1st. We received notification, since we're actually one of the vendors, the cafeteria at the school has to charge it. But there's no other action for the board to take. Settlement agreement, this is on the case that Ms. Whistle had filed against the town. We reached a settlement agreement with our insurance company, Ms. Whistle, but it needs signatures from the chair of the board. I also need one from the Council on Aging direction. She was mentioned in the case brought by Ms. Whistle.
I'll make a motion to authorize the chair to sign the settlement agreement with Mrs. Whistle.
I'll second that.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. So I said aye. We'll talk.
Yeah, bye.
Oh, I gotta put this in my calendar. August 24th, the
Council on
cookout.
Aging Cookout.
Yeah.
The Council on Aging's requested use of the Town Hall Green on Wednesday, August 24th from noon to 2 for the annual cookout. Also invited the board to attend.
I'll make a motion that we approve the use of the town green for the COA cookout on August 24th from noon to 2.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Because of the lateness of the hour, I don't know if the board would like to postpone discussion on what the town can be doing on the opioid issues.
Yeah, you know, I've had some discussion with the chief, so yeah, if you don't mind putting that off.
Yeah, I'll put that on the 26th.
26th, yeah.
American Thunder Fireworks, as money came in for fundraising, the amount for the fireworks contract kept bumping up. The board had previously okayed it in between meetings, but the board needs to affirm approval of the contract for the $15,000 with American Thunder Fireworks.
So moved. Second.
Nor you signed it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
John Grew at 99 Forest Street had obtained a live entertainment permit for Saturday, July 16th. He's asked for it to be amended to include a rain date of Sunday, July 17th. No other changes.
I'll make a motion that we amend the permit to include a rain date of July 17th.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Okay, if you guys want to sign that Kim already did.
Oh, I did.
So slow. Small Business Administration. A resident had contacted me about an initiative by the Small Business Administration. This is the United States agency about Startup in a Day. The idea is that someone who's starting a business in a community should be able to apply for all their permits online and in one day, basically it's sort of a mass form. Our problems with doing that is that we're not set up. We looked into online permitting systems. The challenges are that it would cost thousands of dollars to implement, which would then have to be passed on to folks getting the applications and permits and such. Plus, our other challenge has been when we tried to do anything online in terms of permitting, unfortunately, most of the applicants get the forms done incorrectly, which means that the departments or the admins have to then chase down those people, get the forms corrected, get the right payments and such, and it just ends up being a bigger boggle than doing it in person.
The recommendations we don't.
I agree. We don't issue enough permits to justify doing that. The online permitting system is really for those communities that are more interested in generating the revenue quickly than they are getting the permitting done correctly. And that's not a slam at other communities, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think there might be ways of working with that in the sense of setting up systems where the permitting process is a one step where they file but not send in payment. Someone can then review it, contact them, you know, with the understanding that these people, and I'd say we do it today or tomorrow, but I think while there are reasons not to do it today, there may be ways of doing it sometime in the later, but it's a very low priority on my list.
Yeah, and to what you alluded to earlier, it's really, I find that it would be intensive for your admins because you would be making phone calls, trying to chase people. All the while, these people think that they've submitted their permitting and thinking it's moving forward, and it's not moving forward. In my opinion, especially for small communities, I don't see it as a boon or a plus.
And our other challenges, and what I think, and Tom can confirm this or tell me I'm wrong, but every business is different in the sense of some of them, it's almost just walk in, they get the use permit, they haven't changed the wiring, the plumbing,
Right.
They're not doing any structural work, the building's already there, there's no, it's by right, boom, done. They get the business certificate from the town clerk's office, and they use permit from the building inspector, and we're all in one building, we're here, they can get it done.
Right.
Others, you end up with a planning board with site plan, or you end up with the ZBA with special permits, you might even come see us, Board of Health. It's trying to devise a system that's sort of one-stop for everything. I can imagine it, but it would have to be a unified department covering all those things for someone to be able to walk through an applicant for that process.
We're not set up, and we can't be set up, because that would mean, you almost have to bring one person on, and wouldn't be enough payment coming in to pay the salary. So it's not.
I don't want to belabor this whole conversation, but
Then don't.
one of the first things that has to happen typically in any building project is you got to get a zoning determination. So you need that before you're even applying, and you're not going to get that online, at least not immediately. So it's really complicated. It sounds good in theory. I've looked at it for years. I know other communities use it. It's mixed bag results with it. I've talked to communities that said they hate it for those same reasons that we've already gone over. I think we're too small at this point, and I think we got other things on our plate than to worry about this.
Okay, Montponton Pond. I'm going to belabor Montponton because there's a lot of things going on. There are really two central points in dealing with at this point, other than the actual problems that we've got. One is we've been working with DEP on the idea of doing a larger, more robust treatment. It's their recommendation from about a month ago. Their conclusion was that instead of doing the small 2 gram per square meter of the pond treatments, that we should invest in a larger treatment, in a sense of a greater concentration. Preferably that would be done early in the spring in April, but obviously we're not there. So when we met with them in June, they were even saying at that point, when we were having fairly low, close to the limit, but I think still below the limit of 70,000 to close the pond, that we hit it in June again with a much larger amount. At that point, I contacted Solitude Lake Management, which is the firm we've been dealing with, and said, okay, originally we were going to do 3 treatments. We've done 1 of the 2 grams. Let's take all the money, because there's mobilization costs. No matter how little or how much you put into the pond, you got to send the boat out, you got to send the people out, they got to spend the time doing that. Let's take that money from the 3rd treatment and put it into treatment number 2 and increase the dosage. How much will that cost? How much can we do how much will it cost to do 10 grams or 15 grams or something like that? So I'm still waiting to get an answer for that.
Yes. Wow, still?
Yes. At the same time, unfortunately, we had done the treatment in early June. Natural Heritage wasn't happy with us because last year, the Solitude had changed the monitoring system about talking to Natural Heritage. They had a good reason to do so because the monitoring system involved human beings in the water when we were above the 70,000 algae, or in the hundreds of thousands of algae. Right, so they did camera work, which wasn't satisfactory one way or the other to Natural Heritage. But they were telling us just this month.
So they care more about the mussels than the humans. Sorry.
They have a role to play. But the other problem was that now they were saying, okay, well, you didn't do it right. You're going to have to provide us with a better monitoring plan that meets our standards. Whether it's as part of a much higher concentration or not, you're going to need to do that. And so we've gone back, obviously, said to Solitude, well, you've got to do this. So I'm waiting to hear back from Solitude on both of those things. The thing is, of course, we can't do any more treatment until we have a monitoring plan in place, large or small. We're now in July 12th. The levels have exponentially gone up. Setting aside that I would want the board to vote on doing something, there's nothing for the board to vote on right now because right now I'm blocked. I don't have any estimates from Solitude. I don't have a green light because I don't have a monitoring plan from Natural Heritage. However, the idea of the aluminum sulfate is to have it bind with phosphorus. That phosphorus cannot be used by the algae to grow. The problem is the algae is already grown. It's going to be so, and the aluminum sulfate is not a herbicide. Unlike when we did the invasive weed work, which was using a herbicide, this does. this is simply a chemical treatment of the water, changing what's available to the algae. I'm hoping maybe in the next week that we'll get some information from Solitude. But I really think, and I'll talk with the board before, if we get their decision, obviously, before doing anything, that I don't want to spend any more money on this year. I hate the idea that the pond will be closed for the rest of the year because of the algae counts. Setting aside any other issues with Brockton or who's to blame or anything like that, just the fact that we have this resource that once again for another year will be for most of June, all of July, all of August, probably into the fall, we're going to tell people, do not boat there, do not fish there, do not go swimming there. I hate doing that. But the thing is that I don't think whatever treatment we do, however large it is, later this summer, if we did one, is going to reduce the algae count below the 70,000 that we would reopen the pond.
Because it's too late in the season to do it.
Right. I'd rather take the money that we've already appropriated and throw it into a treatment in April of 2017.
Right.
When we talk with DEP, one of the things they basically, they've done a lot of work on Ponset. They're doing total maximum daily load calculations. Basically, it's water, it flows in and out, it's what's in the water, everything like that. And trying to set up a system so we can sort of regulate the pond so that it reduces the algae population, doesn't encourage the invasive weed population, and allows everybody to use it. I think ultimately, we can hit the pond with those treatments hard enough to reduce the phosphorus levels to a point where the algae won't close the pond. Long term, and there are other things we should be doing, but in terms of phosphorus versus aluminum sulfate, one of the ideas they came in with was that we would put some sort of pumping station. I don't mean some huge complex, but I'm calling it a pumping station because that's what it will do, is that we'll be able to follow the testing of the amount of phosphorus in the water. And then, if it hits a certain level, once we solve the immediate problem, we put aluminum sulfate. If it's a week, a month, a year that we don't need to, you don't run the pumping station, you don't throw any of that chemical in there. If we start seeing the levels get to 20 or above, then you start throwing aluminum sulfate in there. Because that, for them, is sort of the number where you're encouraging growth of algae, you're not encouraging growth of algae. But all that is later. So that's where we're at specifically there. And I don't have any answers, I don't have any recommendations other than I don't want to spend any money, but until I get information from Solitude and until I get green lights from National Heritage, there's no place for us to go.
It's just too late for us to change horses in the stream. We can't get rid of Solitude
Well,
someplace else.
I think that won't solve our problem the year we're in right now.
No.
Because whatever,
It's too late.
Acme water treatment or lake management couldn't do anything either. They'd have to get the permitting, they'd have to meet, we're not going to get anything done.
Well, not only that, but the levels are so high that at this point, the dose isn't even gonna matter because the algae is already
It's
there.
already happened.
So it's too late.
Well, I guess my only concern is, and it's that I guess aluminum sulfate is about the only thing we have right now than just poison in the lake. But will that over a period of time accumulate and cause its own problems?
No, because I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't asked. I think we'll find out. A little bit longer term, I think there's nothing preventing the board from re-examining our relationship with Solitude. And maybe this fall to start knocking on some other doors and saying, here's our situation. We're looking at some options.
Well, they haven't lived up to the expectations, but they're not doing the things they need to do to keep us running. That's why we went.
Well, I mean, I could understand the whole live dive versus camera thing when the algae's that high. I mean, I totally understand it, but I also think from a perspective of, are we doing it right? Is there a new company that could come in and have fresh eyes at it? So I would be more,
Well, there's no point in throwing money at it now, it's too late.
it's just so incredibly
Well, the
sad.
thing that bothers me most is that National Heritage one doesn't, they're concerned about the clams and stuff, but with the way the algae and the weeds are growing, there's no clear gravel for the clams to even breed or to do anything.
Although I have to tell you, my boys, well, that they've been on the east side, and they can't believe how many mussels there are.
Yeah, the east side is different
The
than
east
what I'm
side
saying on
looks
the
a
west
whole lot better
side.
than
Yeah,
west
it's the
side.
best.
On the
It's
west
been in
side,
years.
I can go down there, got a bucket of water out of it, it's so murky, you can't see
Yeah.
anything. So how the clams, it's affecting the clams because they're sucking it in, and they may not be able to do so.
I was talking to a resident there who's right on the pond on 36. He said he hasn't seen the lake on that side that clean in a long time.
Yeah. And that's why we have invasive weed problems over on Eastmont Ponce Pond rather than west.
Right.
Because the pond is so clean, the sunlight can get down farther into the water
Right, and-
and erode the
yeah.
invasive weeds, which is what we don't want in Westmont Ponce. We're gonna aim for sort of slightly murky water in Westmont Ponce in the long term. But
Keep the weeds down.
So there's no action you wanted to take at this
No,
time?
well,
We do have to talk about-
I'll talk to you about other
Yeah.
things here. We've had residents indicate that they feel the barriers should go back up at the boat ramps on Route 58 and on the 4th Street ramp that the town owns. Just to make sure people understand for our audience out there. Everybody calls the Route 58 boat ramp a state boat ramp. It's called that because A, the state built it. Funding came from the state. And as part of that deal, all residents in the state are eligible to use it. We cannot restrict use to residents only. However, it's our boat ramp. We own it, we maintain it. And we would have, in fact, the right, as long as we close both ramps, we could do that. We did that last year. The problem is with the logistics are that once you do that, and we ran into this last year, then people say, oh, I want to get my boat out. And it just ends up being too many random things. The other thing is that in terms of the complaints from the residents, what they said to me in essence was the things they were describing were people who live on the pond already, boating, jet skiing, etc. So the problem, putting a barrier up at the boat ramp doesn't prevent residents who are on the pond from then aerating the water and the algae, because there's a concern, and I understand, there's been plenty of articles about possible health problems. So putting the barriers in, as much as, it looks good, doesn't actually solve the problem and causes our own set of problems.
Mm-hmm.
So unless the board tells me otherwise, I'm not going back to, for instance, the highway department, police department, to ask them to coordinate a barrier system. However, I think there's general agreement we need better signage in all 4 locations. The Route 36 boat ramp in the Eastmont Ponce Pond is good. Everybody can use that who's a resident. But also the Route 58 boat ramp, the 5th Avenue beach, and the 4th Avenue boat ramp there. The Board of Health put me in contact with a sign company they've done work with. I've given a description and design of what is a basically 4x8.
Flashing lights with an arrow pointing?
Close to that, yeah. And I was able to get an appropriation from the Finance Committee, from the Reserve Fund to do this work, so I'm not waiting around. Their firm's taking a look at design. I'm hoping this week I'll get back either suggestions and a price, and we're moving forward. I can't say next week when we have signage up, but it will be better than what we've got and more prominent than what we've got, so that everybody, someone will say, well, I didn't see any sign, the only reason you didn't see a sign is you
didn't look for it.
Right, yeah, it'll be very prominent.
Well, I did have a brief conversation with Chief Broderick this week about the enforcement, because I had seen on Facebook that people were concerned that nobody's really throwing people out of the pond and the whole thing, and he talked about that there is no mechanism that even our police officers
We don't
have
have a
for
boat out there
finding
anymore,
or
harbor master.
enforcing it. It really is an advisory.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a harbor master anymore with a boat.
Well, they don't, but
To go
also,
out there.
But even if they did, they'd have there's no law or anything that allows
I
that.
think I may in the longer term talk with Larry about that, in the sense of, if we were doing for health considerations legally, I'm not saying that we have the ability to in the sense of the resources, but if push came to shove, could we in fact find people, could we tow people off the water or whatever? I'm not saying that's what we want to do, but if we had the resources, would that be a place we could be going? The last thing on Ponset, we did have a visit about a week and a half ago from the city councilors. I think Kathy Drine and I met with them for, I don't know, an hour and a half. We took a tour of Ponset Pond and such. And they have, I think, a much better understanding of the situation than they did when they came here initially. And I think we'll get an invite from them maybe in September to meet with the city council about Ponset Pond. So I'm really happy that they came. I'm really happy we had the meeting. It's not resulted in anything today, but
It's an opening door. Somebody returned our call.
Communication.
Somebody was willing to talk to us, and somebody initiated it with us, well, we've been begging, so.
So that's where we are with our plans. I'm not happy about the situation. I appreciate the concerns that people have. I think we're just unfortunately very limited as to our ability right now today to be able to do something about it. Recycling coordinator, we've had for a number of years a regional recycling coordinator housed down at a recycling center, and it's worked out.
She's no longer there?
Well, a new person came in, but it also is time for renewal of the agreement with Mass Department of Environmental Protection. Susan has been thrilled about having someone there. They're not just working with Halifax, they're working with Southeast Massachusetts communities. But two things: one, we're actually bringing money into the town because they're renting from us, and then second, having the expertise right there next door, since on recycling issues and solid waste issues has been very fruitful. So I am requesting that the board approve having a sign, the chair sign on behalf of the board, review municipal assistance host grant.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
So,
You're up at the top.
You're on the top.
You're at the top.
You're at the top.
top of your game.
You're at the top of your game.
One more thing to sign here, electricity,
Yes.
actually, nothing signing, electricity aggregation.
We just adopted.
If you remember, we're in the process of going out to bid with a number of other communities for electricity on behalf of our residents. As part, one of the steps in there is the aggregation plan. This was put on the website for review and public comment. We received one comment from the public, an email that I got a number of weeks ago that basically said, yes, please move this forward. But the board needs to be officially on the record as approving the aggregation plan because all this is sent to the Department of Public Utilities. So the board could approve the aggregation plan was developed by Colonial Power Group.
You need a motion?
Yes, please.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
In terms of the stuff I don't have in the mail folder, some of my own notes, the building committee is continuing on the Council on Aging project. I know we met with the architect a couple of times. What I'm recommending to the board is that the board communicate with the building committee some of what its priorities and maybe some information about what it sees as sort of cost limitations, but what needs to be included as part of the overall project. And the second is, I think it's an important point, because there's been some concern from comments made by various members of the committee from time to time, that the committee needs to be 100% in support of this. As much as I understand there might be some people who feel that the other options or that we've already looked at or other options that we haven't looked at would be preferable. Town meeting did approve money specifically from town office for this option.
Absolutely.
And the building committee needs to put 100% of its effort into supporting this and making this work. It may not be what they feel is the best thing, but that's what town meeting has said, and they need to.
Do you want to send a message to them from the board that we're behind it?
I couldn't agree more.
Yep. So I would ask that we move to allow Charlie to send a letter from the board stating that we're.
Yes.
I think there needs to be.
Yes, I think that Tom, you attended the meeting. I had talked to one of the members, but I wasn't there. You couldn't really fill us in. I had talked to, I think Bert Gaynor, but.
It was a little interesting. We had charged the architect, I wasn't there for the charging, but charged the architect with coming up with a plan somewhere in the vicinity of $750,000. The architect came back with a plan that was somewhat larger than that they had been discussing, at a price considerably more, at 1.3 and change.
What?
1.3 and change, based on a cost estimate of $400 a square foot for commercial construction with prevailing wage, which I thought was definitely on the high side. The plan was a little bit elaborate in terms of the glazing. I think the committee did the right thing, in my opinion. They said, whoa, time out. Where did you come up with this? This is not what we were talking about. This is not what we, discussed to you that we wanted you to bring back to us. So they charged them again with coming back with some more plans, and he said that they would continue to work with it until they got it right. But we may need to look at some of the some of the funding and look at some of the extraneous items. Well, not extraneous, but site items in particular. They built in quite a bit of money for septic work and site work. We're going to look at that again and see if we can refine that a little bit and bring that, what I think is more in line. But in order to get to that point, we're going to have to do some investigating in terms of the existing septic system and what we're going to need to do over there, what we can use, what we can't use. So there's some investigating, because nobody's quite sure exactly what's over there for septic.
Okay.
So there's some issues that need to be worked on.
So Charlie, do you have enough for that memo of what?
Well, I think there's two, I think that, but also I mean, if the board wants to come out in support of saying, for the expansion, 750, but I think there's an understanding from the board and from many other people that we're not just talking about expansion. The original part of the building needs renovation.
Yes, absolutely.
And there needs to be money for that too.
Absolutely.
It can't be everything within 750.
On the outside. Yeah, realistically, 750 isn't going to work for everything. Because then what would happen is you end up with a building that's inadequate, and we spent that much money and we still haven't got anything that we can really use. I think we need to look at those things as sort of a separate issue. They had built in $100,000 for renovation in the existing building. That's probably on the light side, depending on how far we want to go. And I brought up the point that the smaller we start thinking about the addition, the more work we're going to have to do in the older building to make it more viable.
Right, exactly.
It's a catch-22.
You know what? That's a great point. I wouldn't have thought of that.
So the architects, I think, got the message. As I was leaving, I had an opportunity to talk to them because they were hanging around the parking lot, and so I took advantage of that. And I think they have the gist here, and I think their plan was to go back and work on it some more. But we need to talk with. We may even want to set up a meet with the building committee and start thinking about our parameters in terms of what we think this project.
Would that be better than a memo, or?
Well, at some point, yes, I think you want to meet with them, but I think.
But we should.
I think you want to go to one of their meetings. We seem to be booked up.
No, I understand. Yeah.
Well, they're also on Tuesday nights, which makes it difficult.
Right.
It's typically on
No,
my
well,
You were there the night that Kim and I, because I left early, I had to leave at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty elaborate plan originally. I mean, it was really beautiful.
Oh, it was nice.
But they had talked a little bit about modular, which would help. And they talked about modular during the interview process, this particular firm. And then when he came in with that, it was totally different.
Exactly. And now, where the discussion went was more in terms of a one-story building with less second story.
No.
Well, this is the kind of direction they were, giving. But that's why I think we need to kind of reevaluate what we're willing to support and discuss it with them. And 750 is probably unrealistic for everything.
Right.
We just wouldn't end up with enough to make it worthwhile.
But I think even if we made a statement to the fact that we're in support and would gladly support a town meeting in addition to the building instead of looking anyplace else.
Yeah, to maybe separate the site work and the renovation work.
Yeah.
That's where I found myself sitting in that meeting thinking to myself that, I think we need to separate that out. I mean, it may not, we could probably come up with a decent sized addition for less than $750, but
Yep. Okay, do you have enough, Charlie?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, awesome. Is that it?
On the council on aging, yes, just on the fragrance policy,
Wait, complaining about me?
No,
Yes.
it's me. It's totally me.
I could see that.
A few months ago, I had some employees approach me that we were having problems with fragrances and they are having physical health responses to excessive fragrances. And this has been, you've seen this in other locations across the nation. It's not necessarily a big issue in every single community yet, but I've seen it in other workplaces, I've seen it in other town halls and such.
Had that when I was in high school.
So I sent out a note to everybody, look, and it's all voluntary, and it's that I'm not recommending any sort of mandatory, because I'm the last person that could do the smell police. But what I did was to ask, encourage people, please don't wear scents in the building, because when you're setting up a situation that for some employees, it's the difference between being able to work in a healthy environment and an unhealthy one.
Yeah, but
I know,
at
I
the
had
same
no idea.
time,
How do you
if
control
some people who need to have some type of fragrance on just so they can be around
Well,
other
you know
people.
me, I love to wear perfume, and I didn't know if it was me or somebody else who her perfume, a resident had come in that had strong, and I witnessed the girl coughing, and she's like, sometimes yours throws it off too, and I'm like, oh, I won't wear that anymore.
and I think that's where
Yeah.
it's going to be difficult. I mean, if you have the general public walking
Right,
around.
and that's going to be the next step. Two things. One, I thought at some point the board should, in fact, rather than just having myself, but having the board send a note to the employees. Again, it's a voluntary policy. Because the thing is this, ultimately, if we have an unsafe and unhealthy work environment, someone can in fact sue the town.
No, I know.
So I don't want, and it's happening in other places, so I don't want it to be that way. I would like it to be that we are able to have everybody be able to breathe in this building.
I know, and then I felt badly because Charlie, in full disclosure, I sprayed before I came tonight.
I'm not, I'm
That's
not,
good.
I'm not specifically bothered because
Yeah, but I'm serious, and I say it again, I work around people, they have to wear deodorant, they have to wear something to kind the funk, because they can take a shower, do everything, and they still have a odor disorder.
Well,
Some people sweat profusely.
and there are things that you can do to neutralize the odors without producing new ones.
Yeah. But again, I mean, it's still the wild card, which is
The
the
residents,
general public.
and at some point, what you do is you get, if you're going to go down that road, is you do a little PR and say to our residents, look, we understand, you feel that it's a freedom of, you have a right to wear fragrances, but if you're going to enter somebody else's workplace and you're affecting them, do you really, is that important to you?
How do you police?
Well, no, I'm not saying you
Yes,
police.
there's not just residents.
You could do a sniff test at the door.
Oh, yeah.
I think we have to put in a delousing station at the front door,
And I understand that.
a neutralizing station.
But I've gone to conferences, for instance,
I'm not
where it specifically
diminishing.
says in the information of the conference, this is a fragrance-free event, because people are, and I know there are people out there that say, oh, it's all in their head.
No.
Well, it isn't. I have family members, for instance, that have reactive airways to certain scents, to certain smells and such, and it's real. They have problems breathing. It's the equivalent of having an asthma attack.
Well, we can certainly take reasonable measures. I mean, there is no way to make this 100%.
So I would
I've seen it, I haven't seen so much of fragrance, but, cigars, cigarettes, it's the same type of thing, the reaction to it.
Yeah, I witnessed it this week.
Well, heavy perfume smell, I mean, I've seen people really go almost anaphylactic shock from it.
Right, and that's what I'm talking about. I mean, if the board, I'll bring it back to the board in a couple of
No,
weeks.
I don't mind. I don't mind if you guys are ready. I'll make a motion that we set it up.
I showed you what I
Kim
sent
does
out.
not wear any perfume
I would just
ever
like to get
again.
it under the board's signature rather than just mine.
Yeah, I have to stop. Yeah, but I'll make the motion, but I have to kind of reread the memo over and over in the morning.
We'll do a
To
12-step
suggest.
program.
I know, I'm gonna need it because I grabbed for it today.
Motion to what?
To put out a recommendation or ask.
Taking the text that I gave, sent to
A
the...
strong suggestion to individuals who overdose themselves.
Charlie's
on
recommendation.
opioids and other things.
For voluntary, fragrance-free.
Fragrance-free policy.
Yep.
And that is
No, you need to
all
second
I've got.
I second it.
Except,
I'll second.
All those in favor?
I do have one short executive session and on the control officer contract.
Okay.
Okay, wait.
I promise it's short.
You need to, do, the
Are we gonna do the
reappointments?
placements?
Yes, we do need to do the
You know
reappointments.
what?
I don't have the cards.
Um,
Okay, so can I make a motion that we reappoint the following people?
Reappoint.
We, I'm gonna put my glasses away, but I think I can do it. Mary Fate from the Agricultural Commission with a,
Oh, here we see.
with an expiration of June 30th, 2017. Barbara O'Hanley, Agricultural Commission, with a term ending June 30th, 2017. Kathy Evans on the Conservation Commission for a term ending June 30th, 2019. Gordon Andrews on the Fire Department Study Committee for a term expire, it doesn't say, June 30th, 2017. Michael Manugian for the HEMA Deputy Director, June 30th, 2017. Troy Guerin for the OCPC Alternate Member, June 30th, 2019. Troy Guerin for the OCPC Delegate at Large, June 30th, 2019.
Second.
George, Roy,
Yeah.
and then
All in favor?
Aye.
And I should inform the board, we have about 15 to 20 people who would normally have come up for reappointment, but what we've done is we had to monitor whether everybody had fulfilled their the state ethics summary and also done the online training, and we still have 15 to 20 people who would have come up for reappointment who had either done one, had not done one, or either both of those things. Pam has been in touch with everybody at least a couple of times. We're going to send one last note out to them to say, we appreciate your interest in being reappointed, but we can't do this until you do these things. Once you do these things, please tell us, and we'll bring the matter back up to the board for your reappointment. If you choose not to complete the ethics work subject as part of the appointment process, we appreciate your service. Thank you.
Oh, so hard to get volunteers.
It's like pulling teeth to get people to
Now, I mean, there are a couple of
volunteer.
committees where this is going to be a concern.
Yes.
But I'm hoping that one last note will encourage these people to,
Yeah.
Well, tell them I did it, they can do it.
What are you, wooden money?
Pam, we have done everything aside from doing this short executive session.
Yeah, we do that, and then that,
Two papers. Quit whispering behind my back, you two.
Oh, do I need to make a motion?
We're waiting for Pam to see,
Yeah,
make sure we
do you want
got
to talk about the, town meeting warrant? Is there anything to talk about? And then-
No.
No, we're doing town meeting.
it. Town meeting is July 25th, the warrant has gone to printers, and we're hoping it will get out to people beginning of next week. It's online, if people want to download a copy now, it's available. We have fire department staffing issue. We've got the hops, if we do anything with that. We've got my pots of pond, if we do anything with that. We've got the school roof windows project. If we have a resolution on the dispatch contract, we'll do that, and also merging the dispatcher line items into one line item so that it can be used for all services.
Are we through with the general information? Good night, everyone.
So we're going to